Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto. There is a big problem with my love life options. Chapter 1. Konoha, the playground of the ninja school. Yi Feng lazily leaned under the shade of a tree to enjoy the cool air, and his dead fish eyes without any motivation watched his classmates sweating in the sun. He is a time traveler. One day 10 years ago, he wore a headgear cause Sun Go at a comic exhibition, and accidentally fell into the sewer when he walked out of the exhibition hall. When he woke up again, he was inexplicably reincarnated into this war-torn world of Naruto. Not long after he was weaned, his parents were blown to pieces by a detonating talisman during a mission. Now he became an orphan again and was transferred to the Konoha orphanage to be raised. Now he is 10 years old, and he still hasn't awakened the golden finger. From the initial expectation, uneasiness, sadness to the current indifference, Yi Feng feels that this is the growth of life. Must a time traveler be cool and awesome? Can't he just lie down and be a salted fish? Isn't it good for him to live a plain and unrestrained life like this? The mission of peace in the ninja world will be accomplished by the savior of this world. A civilian ninja like him who is ordinary and only a little handsome can live a life of cowardice. Yi Feng, you are here after all. Walking towards him is a boy with a lazy temperament, with a pineapple head and only half-open eyelids. It is Yi Feng's classmate, Shikamaru. Well, it's too hot. Yi Feng waved his hand in response and said, I don't want to move at all. Indeed, Shikamaru nodded in agreement and sighed, I really don't understand why Teacher Iruka had to choose such a hot day for actual combat tests, and I don't understand why those guys are as excited as chicken blood at this time. Those guys, Shikamaru mentioned, are the other classmates in the class, who gathered in a circle and cheered for their friends. Of course, the most popular one is Sasuke. He has a handsome face, a cool demeanor, and a genius buff. Little girls can't help themselves when they see him, and their eyes are almost tearing. Many people will envy and be jealous of this, such as a classmate Naruto who bites his lips. Shikamaru and Yi Feng won't. This lazy duo thinks girls are troublesome, and they would rather stay away from them. This is youth, Shikamaru-san. Yi Feng rested his arms behind his head and said leisurely, youth full of passion is just like the scenery in front of us. Then what are we to? Shikamaru asked in confusion. Entering old age early. Yi Feng spoke without hesitation. Shikamaru, Kobayashi Yi Feng, it's your turn. Teacher Iruka's voice came from afar. Tisk, now we are going to be young again. Shikamaru looked unhappy. It doesn't matter, just finish it quickly. Yi Feng patted his butt and stood up, walking towards the center of the playground in a casual manner. Yi Feng, Shikamaru, you two should cheer up. Naruto, who was beaten black and blue, shouted loudly, fearing that others would not know that this pair of recognized lazy guys were his good friends. They are rivals now, who are you going to cheer for? The fat boy Akamichi Choji standing next to him asked curiously. Naruto thought for a moment, pointed to his face and said, whoever becomes like me now, I will cheer for him. The classmates present were silent for a while, and the corners of their mouths could not help but twitch slightly. Okay, if they don't become as black and blue as you, they are not your friends, right? The way my buddy recognizes friends is really unique. Can these two guys really fight? Haruno Sakura couldn't help but whispered, frowning and said, I don't think I have seen them fight since I was a child. Hey, now that you say that, I suddenly feel excited. Yamanaka Ino standing next to her said with wide eyes. Yi Feng, that guy, has a different temperament. Sasuke, who had his hands in his pockets, looked a little cautious. Just as Haruno Sakura said, these two people have not participated in any practical tests since the day they entered school. No one in the whole class can figure out their exact strength, and their fame is all due to their laziness. But today, Yi Feng's lazy temperament suddenly became a little sharp. This made Sasuke feel that things were not that simple. Did he hide his strength? Begin. As Iruka Yumino's command sounded, Yi Feng's dead fish eyes returned to normal at this moment, and he seemed to be serious. Just like the strong people described in the comics, they usually act lazy, but when they really take action, they are surprising. Hey, Yi Feng is actually quite handsome when he is not dead fish eyes. Yamanaka Ino blinked and said in surprise, isn't this worse than Sasuke? Really? Haruno Sakura subconsciously nodded in agreement, but soon reacted. Wait, this is impossible, Sasuke is always number 1. Quote. Sasuke is number 1, but Yifeng is not bad either. We can only say that they have different styles and each has its own merits. Yamanaka Ino felt that she had made a fair evaluation. Not paying attention to the argument of the two little nympho watching, Yifeng shouted with sharp eyes and raised his right hand high. Ninjutsu. Starry Sky Technique. Swish. The dust in the sky instantly covered Shikamaru's head and face, and the pineapple-headed boy screamed and covered his eyes. Yifeng took advantage of this good opportunity to go up and hit him with a cleft kick. Shikamaru was not prepared at all and fell to the ground KO without any surprise. The whole audience was silent. Yumino Iruka also found it difficult to comment on this duel. With a twitch at the corner of his mouth, he helped Shikamaru up. Are you okay? No, it's okay. Quote. Shikamaru clamped his legs together, the intense pain from before had eased a little. He gritted his teeth and looked at his friend, who winked at him at this moment. Yifeng. See, I told you it would be over soon. Shikamaru. You. Yifeng. Don't be angry, I'll treat you to barbecue tonight. Shikamaru. I want the deluxe version. Although he was very angry, the deluxe version of barbecue still made Shikamaru compromise. The two of them were arm in arm again, and left the ninja school playground under the watchful eyes of many people. Yifeng-kun. Quote. Among these subtle looks, only a short-haired girl with gray pupils looked at Shikamaru with envy. If Yifeng-jun was supporting her at this time, she would also be willing to get hurt. The girl's face gradually turned red, and she quickly shook her head to drive this strange thought out of her mind. The sun was setting in the west, and the setting sun was more beautiful than blood. In the barbecue restaurant in Konoha, Shikamaru was feasting heartily. His good friend was a very cunning person, and it was not easy to make a killing from him. What's more, he was actually injured, so he had no psychological burden to eat. On the contrary, Guan Yifeng frowned at this time, looking straight at the air in front of him. The chopsticks in his hand held the barbecue for a long time without moving, as if he was cast with a spell of immobilization. In front of Yifeng, a glittering screen appeared. Welcome to use the Love Life option system, this system will serve you wholeheartedly. System. Gold Finger. After 10 years, my gold finger finally arrived. But why is it the Love Life option, to have a sweet and warm love in this world with killing and being killed as the main theme? Go boss stuff, the wrong product was sent. No response. This system is obviously a dead thing without intelligence. No matter how Yifeng complained, it didn't respond at all. This is a bit difficult. Scratching his head, Yifeng stuffed the barbecue on the chopsticks into his mouth. Ah, it was the strong smell of mustard, which made his nose run and tears flow. Looking up, he happened to see Shikamaru, who was trying not to laugh. Kid, do you think this is interesting? It's okay. Hee. Yifeng ignored the childish kid in front of him and continued to study his golden finger. By the way, can this thing really be considered a golden finger? Awakening the love system in the Naruto world is not very reliable no matter how you think about it. Find a girl to fall in love with and then go the route of a gigolo. Choose. What the hell? Looking at the prompt box that suddenly popped up in front of him, Yifeng's expression was a little dazed. 1. Use the impure world reincarnation to summon Uzumaki Kushina and convey your love to her. 2. Write a touching love letter and deliver it to Chiyoko of Sand Village by courier. 3. Stand on the Hokage rock and confess your love to Might Guy loudly, and announce your love for him in public. ? Looking at the option prompts that popped up in front of him, Yifeng's eyes widened, and he was completely stunned. Is it sick? This system is definitely sick. What kind of love objects are you looking for? Kushina, who died long ago, Chiyoko of Sand Village. These two are fine, at least they are still women. What the hell is Might Guy? That watermelon-headed, green tights-wearing, turbulent man who shouts, "Youth," every day, let himself stand on the Hokage rock and confess to him loudly. That will kill him, it is absolutely a complete social death. Goodbye. Yifeng immediately decided to banish this system to the cold palace and never hire it. What a jerk, what a psychopath. He took a breath and began to finish the barbecue on his plate faster. After a few minutes, the system interface began to flash a red prompt. You have 15 seconds to make a choice. What do you mean? You are still forcing me here, right? Yifeng smiled disdainfully and put a piece of barbecue into his mouth with chopsticks. Come on, I won't choose. Wait to be wiped out. Time is up. Yifeng still looked calm, he was really not afraid of death. Living in this bloody and dirty world, it's okay to live, and it's okay to die. Anyway, it's just a handful of yellow soil in a few decades, so what's wrong with dying earlier? Warning. Please complete the task as soon as possible. Funny. Yifeng snorted coldly and continued to eat barbecue leisurely. If you keep warning me, I'll beat you up. Warning. You have 5 seconds to make a choice. Otherwise, a close friend will be selected and his mother will be killed. Puff. The barbecue in his mouth sprayed all over Shikamaru's head and face, and Yifeng opened his mouth in disbelief. God. No, buddy. Which planet are you from? From the newborn planet, right? If you don't complete the option, it's not you, the system owner, who will be killed, but you will designate a friend's mother to explode. You're crazy. What a retarded system. Warning. There are 4 seconds left to select friends. 3, 2, 1. The prompt interface with a flashing red light is like a death note, and it doesn't care about the host Yifeng's complaints at all. Stop, stop, Yifeng shouted loudly in his mind, took a breath and said, I choose, you dog system. Choose one. Choice successful. The red light disappeared, and Yifeng finally breathed a sigh of relief. Shaolin Yifeng, what are you doing again, you fool? Shikamaru on the opposite side finally wiped the meat off his face and said angrily. Brother, you should feel lucky. Yifeng stood up and patted his shoulder, saying, I saved your family with my integrity. I stopped your mother from exploding. So to express your gratitude, you should buy this meal. Go to hell. Walking out of the barbecue restaurant, Yifeng looked up at the red clouds in the sky. Tisk, what a sin. When the golden finger just awakened, he was a little excited, thinking that his buddy could finally turn his luck around. But now, he even wanted to strangle this go-boss system to death. Using a friend's mother to threaten his host, is this something a serious system can do? Satan has to have a tattoo of you on his back. But fortunately, Buddy is still smart enough. He chose the first and most impossible task, so he won't be able to be reincarnated. He can't blame himself for not completing this task, right? The knowledge of the skills of reincarnation has been obtained for you, please summon your love interest within 5 minutes. Question mark. Feeling the knowledge suddenly poured into his mind, Yifeng's face turned green. This thing, can it be operated like this? And its impure world reincarnation is a magic version, and it doesn't even need the corpse of the impure world reincarnation. As long as you use the remains of the impure world reincarnation, you can directly summon it. You stole the power of the Holy Grail next door, right? Impure world reincarnation becomes summoning heroic spirits. But I don't have the remains of Uzumaki Kushina, do I have to use Naruto as a medium? Yifeng stared and took a breath. What the hell is this, summoning someone's mother as your love interest in front of the child? This is really a living novice. Please complete the options within the specified time. The red light flashed, and the novice system issued an alarm reminder again. Yifeng gritted his teeth and said angrily, you fool, don't give me a chance in the future. He rushed out of the door and ran all the way to Naruto's house. Yifeng. As soon as he arrived at Naruto's door, he saw a little yellow-haired boy standing at the door. Are you here to see me? Yes, I want to borrow your toilet for a while. Yifeng panted, with his hands on Naruto's shoulders. Ah, Naruto was stunned, his eyes widened. Borrow the toilet, you ran so far. We are good brothers, right? Yifeng asked sincerely. Yes, Naruto nodded decisively. His best friends in the village are Shikamaru and Yifeng. Especially the latter, who has taken care of him since childhood. That's it, toilet, then come in. Naruto scratched his head. To be honest, he still didn't understand the connection between good brothers and borrowing toilets. But looking at Yifeng's anxious look, he didn't ask in the end. Naruto, can you wait for me at the toilet door? Yifeng shouted after entering the toilet. He was really embarrassed to summon someone's mother to court in front of him, but BYD's immortal reincarnation prompted that the remains could not be too far away from the summoning location. What? Naruto was confused again. You go to the toilet by yourself, and you want me to wait at the door. Good brother. Okay, then, let's start. Yi Feng took a deep breath, formed seals with his hands and slapped the ground. Immortal reincarnation technique. Crash. The whole bathroom was filled with confetti-like light, which eventually gathered into the appearance of a human woman. Her long wine-red hair was floating, and she was wearing a dark green dress with a white high-necked shirt underneath. She looked pretty and gentle. It was the mother of her good brother Naruto, Uzumaki Kushina. The red-haired lady slowly opened her eyes and looked around in confusion. Finally, she fixed her sight on the boy in front of her, opened her mouth and was about to say something. Bang! With a muffled sound, a large piece of confetti-like light burst out from Kushina's body. The clothes covering her body completely disintegrated, and she suddenly became naked. Yi Feng was stunned by this scene, and quickly lowered his head when he reacted. There is a problem. There is definitely something wrong with this Gooba reincarnation. How can clothes still fall off? Who is not wearing clothes after the reincarnation? Kushina was also stunned by this sudden situation for a few seconds, and quickly squatted down with her arms folded across her chest. If you observe, you will find that her current state is completely different from the impure world reincarnation in the original book. There are no cracks unique to the impure world reincarnation on her body and cheeks, and her body is also translucent. Compared with the immortal reincarnation, she is more like a complete soul body at this moment. Sorry. Yi Feng was a little embarrassed. From his line of sight, he could only see Kushina's curled toes. Very symmetrical, I want to touch them. No, wait, Yi Feng suddenly realized, is it time to care about someone's toes now? Warning. Please express your love to the person you confess to within 5 seconds. It's started again, right? Can you be a human being? Go boss system. I'm naked now, and you want me to express my love. It's a bit perverted, buddy. The system completely ignored him and continued to count down. Okay, I'll take note of this. Yi Feng took a deep breath, and said loudly with his head down, Mrs. Kushina, I like you. Kushina, who hugged her chest with her arms, shuddered obviously, and stared at the boy with round eyes, as if she had seen some terrible monster. Summoned me out of nowhere, tore my clothes, and then confessed. Kushina is really hard to understand. Have young people started to play so much now? If she didn't feel dizzy and had no strength now, she would have rushed up and punched the other person. Option task completed. Congratulations on obtaining the Soul Pearl. Soul Pearl, what is that? Yi Feng suddenly had a blood-red ball in his hand, which made him feel connected by blood. After looking at it for a while, the function of this ball appeared in his sea of consciousness. Nourishing the soul, improving the strength of the soul every moment, can be stored in his body and integrated with flesh and blood. Good stuff. No matter from which aspect, this thing is absolutely good stuff. But it seems to be useless to Yi Feng now, he is not a soul body. Sorry, Mrs. Kushina. Since the task has been completed, Yi Feng does not intend to continue to let the poor lady in front of him suffer, and said sincerely, I was just joking, I will lift the dirty world and send you back. Huh. Kushina's eyes were originally staring at the blood-red ball in Yi Feng's hand. The thing made her feel an inexplicable attraction. At this moment, she finally breathed a sigh of relief when she heard that the other party was going to lift the dirty world. You joked a little too much, boy. I'm sorry. Yi Feng apologized sincerely. Disturbing the dead and doing such a bad thing. No matter from which aspect, it is indeed a bit too much. Forget it, don't do this kind of thing next time. Kushina curled up and forgave the other party generously. There was no way to not forgive, and she was so light that she couldn't retaliate. At least the result was good now, and she didn't have to endure the embarrassment here any longer. Yi Feng, what's wrong with you? Naruto's voice sounded from outside the door, confused, who are you talking to in my bathroom? Someone else's bathroom. Kushina was stunned, and looked at Yi Feng with a subtle look. You summoned me out of someone else's bathroom to play a confession game. Hey, I'm reading a comic. Yi Feng took a breath, and said stiffly, I was just restoring the comic scene. You came to my house to use the bathroom and brought your own comic book. Naruto was surprised. Well, I'm almost done. Yi Feng awkwardly changed the subject and said, Good brother, wait for me in the living room. Hee hee, You fool really know how to order Naruto around. Muttering, Naruto swayed, leaving the bathroom door. Silence. In the bathroom, the atmosphere suddenly became very quiet. Kushina stared at Yifeng with a sharp gaze, and said in a cold voice, "What's the name of your good brother outside?" Naruto, Naruto. Yifeng felt that his whole face was a little hot, just like a skinned lamb roasted on the fire. Uzumaki Naruto. Kushina took a deep breath, and looked at Yifeng as if she was looking at a scumbag. Running to the bathroom of a good brother's house to summon his long-dead mother to come out and confess, even a newborn would not do such a thing. Mrs. Kushina, I have a reason for this. Swallowing his saliva, Yifeng explained in a low voice. Reason? Kushina raised her eyebrows slightly. I was cursed. Yifeng gritted his teeth and told everything that happened to him. This is not a quibble, but a slight change of concept, saying that the golden finger is a curse. For him, this is indeed a curse. He just wanted to be a lazy, quiet beautiful boy, but the emergence of the Guba system deprived him of his rights. Yifeng had a vague premonition that his future would be a desperate rush on the road of losing his moral integrity. Isn't this a vicious curse? In other words, if you don't summon me out to confess your love without the impure world reincarnation, Yushui will be wiped out. Kushina squatted on the ground with her hands protecting her chest, looking thoughtful. It's really a weird curse. Such a bizarre thing should not be believed by anyone, but Kushina felt that the boy in front of her was not lying. First of all, his immortal reincarnation was obviously a bit wrong, and secondly, the boy's attitude seemed very sincere, which made Kushina instinctively willing to believe it. To be honest, I would rather kill myself. Yifeng sighed and confided to his wife in front of him, this way you don't have to feel so bad. Don't think about death all the time. You still have a long way to go in the future. Kushina reached out a handful of love and touched Yifeng's head, and the other hand was still covering her chest. Mrs. Kushina. Yifeng was very moved and wanted to say something, but at this time, Kushina's soul body whooshed into the soul-enriching bead in his hand. Yifeng was confused by this operation. This soul-enriching bead can actually hold a person. Sure enough, just like you said, this bead can nourish the soul. Kushina's voice came from the soul-enriching bead, and her tone was faintly excited. Please give me more advice in the future, young Yifeng. Ah, you don't plan to go back? Yifeng asked tentatively. I want to stay for a while and witness Naruto's growth, Kushina said softly. But, young man, Naruto still has some of my chakra in his body. You don't want Naruto to know that your good brother's mother confessed to her, right? Yifeng's face suddenly changed, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help twitching wildly. Red-haired lady, you are here to confront me, right? Early morning light. Yifeng sat in the classroom of the ninja school with dark circles under his eyes, and Shikamaru and Naruto sat on his left and right. You fool, you actually ran away from the bill yesterday. Shikamaru gritted his teeth and said angrily, it's okay to run away from the bill, but you also say some weird things to make excuses. Weird words. Naruto looked puzzled. I lost my integrity for Shikamaru's mother yesterday, and this young man didn't believe me. Yifeng's face was full of hurt expression. Who the hell would believe it? My mother was fine at home all day yesterday. Shikamaru was full of black lines. In fact, he really believed it last night. After eating barbecue, he ran home and asked his mother carefully where she was uncomfortable and whether she felt like she was going to explode. As a result, you can imagine that his head is still buzzing. What you see with your eyes is not necessarily the truth. You are still too young, Alu. Yifeng rested his head on his arms and said calmly. What the hell is Alu? I told you not to use that weird name. Shikamaru was full of black lines. As he was talking, classmates also came to the classroom one after another. Hey, that arrogant guy seems to be looking at us. Naruto pointed at Sasuke who had just entered the door and shouted in a rough voice. Humph, the last one. Sasuke turned his face away and snorted coldly. What did you say, arrogant Sasuke? Naruto stood up and said angrily. I'm talking about you, idiot. Sasuke was not weak at all and responded tit for tat. Arrogant guy, I think you're looking for death. Naruto raised his fist and was about to fight. Calm down, calm down. Shikamaru pulled the corner of Naruto's clothes to prevent him from rushing forward. At the same time, he looked at Yifeng and said helplessly, "Help quickly." Being young is good. Yifeng was indifferent, and even held his chin with one hand, expecting them to fight. Sakura, a pale pink figure appeared, completely attracting Naruto's attention. Haruno Sakura glanced at him, then turned her gaze to Yifeng in the middle. She frowned and chatted with her best friend Ino beside her. "I heard that we will have a new teacher this school year." "Well, he said he would teach us to understand the will of fire." Compared to Sakura's indifference, Ino nodded slightly to Yifeng as a greeting. "I don't know what he looks like. He should be the type of person who is very literary." As the two girls talked, they sat down in the front row of Yifeng and the others, and their voices were not concealed at all. "Yifeng, does the will of fire still need someone to teach us?" Naruto asked in a low voice. "Where Konoha dances, the fire will continue." This sentence was taught by his third-generation grandfather when he was a child, and it was emphasized almost every year. Now, he is almost able to recite it by heart. "You know the original text of the will of fire, but do you understand its meaning?" Yifeng yawned with his dead eyes open, and said, "Even if you understand it, it is your own understanding, not the understanding that the school wants to teach you." "Ah," Naruto scratched his head and said, "Is there a variety of understandings of this?" "What the school teaches is the understanding that the Konoha high-level officials want to instill in you. They want to tell you that this is the only explanation of the will of fire, not for you to figure it out yourself," Yifeng said lightly. Naruto frowned, his expression thoughtful. "Yifeng, that's it," Shikamaru reminded quickly. "Okay." Yifeng stopped talking, closed his eyes and began to rest. "Yifeng, do you disagree with the will of fire?" Kushina's voice sounded in his mind. "It's a trick." Yifeng's answer was concise and to the point. "You are biased, aren't you?" As the wife of the fourth Hokage, Kushina is still quite supportive of the will of fire. After all, her husband once devoted his life to this belief. Think about Naruto's situation, and think about the children who were sent to the battlefield before they were 10 years old during the Third World War. Yifeng's tone was still gentle, but his words were full of aggression. "These are all the results of the will of fire you mentioned." Quote. Kushina stopped talking and fell silent. Click, click. A young man wearing a Konoha uniform vest walked up to the podium. He had a turban on his head. His short silver-blue hair was ear-length and he had a gentle smile on his face. It was him. Yifeng narrowed his eyes slightly and recognized this familiar person who had appeared in the original book. "Hello, everyone." The new teacher politely wrote his name on the blackboard and smiled. "My name is Mizuki, and I will be with you for 3 years." "Very handsome, this Mizuki teacher," Sakura exclaimed. "Yeah, and he's the type of warm man." Ino nodded in agreement. "I don't think he's handsome." Naruto, who was sitting in the back row, was a little jealous and muttered in a low voice, "He looks a bit effeminate." Although Naruto was aware that he had spoken in a low voice, Sakura, who had sharp hearing, still caught it clearly. Turning her head, she glanced at him fiercely. "Shut up." "Oh." Naruto didn't dare to refute and lowered his head in a depressed mood. Does Naruto actually like this type of girl? Seeing this scene, Kushina spoke again and commented pointedly, "I don't think this girl is suitable for him." "But there is no way." He is now licking his head. Yifeng sighed and said, "It seems that he doesn't feel that he lives in Gotham." "Gotham, that place is full of clowns." "Puff, you guy. You just laughed, that's your own son. How can you laugh as a mother?" "Shut up, who do you think is the reason?" Kushina just finished speaking, and suddenly felt Yifeng's body paused. "What's going on? Wait a minute, the curse is coming." "What?" Kushina was stunned. "Is it so random?" At this moment, a pale golden interface appeared in front of Yifeng, which even Kushina could not see, and a series of information appeared. Choose 1. Go to Konoha Square and expose the secret that Sarutobi Hiruzen used a crystal ball to spy on the butcher lady going to the toilet this morning. 2. Use the video stone to play the precious picture of Haruno Sakura's parents playing with hillbillies in their room last night. 3. In front of everyone in the class, ask Mizuki if he was breathing aerobics with a small red carp by the river bank the afternoon before yesterday. Hiss. Looking at the 3 options refreshed in front of him, Yifeng couldn't help but take a breath. These so-called secrets, can't they all be true? What a trick, these people. Sarutobi Hiruzen, this old man, even peeked at the butcher lady. BYD has a strong taste. Sakura's parents, they like this kind of style. Of course, compared to them, Mizuki is even more important. Fish, little red carp. Amazing, this thing can also be used for aerobic breathing. Swallowing his saliva, Yifeng finally decided to choose 3. For nothing else, just pure curiosity. Did Mizuki poison the little red carp? How could he do such a thing? Taking a deep breath, Yifeng raised his hand and stood up and said, Teacher Mizuki, I have a question. The carefully prepared speech was interrupted, and Shuimu frowned slightly. In fact, he looked down on these delicate ninja school students from the bottom of his heart, and he also didn't like the will of fire course. But for the sake of his superficial disguise, he still endured it. With a humble smile on his face, he said, This is Mr. Kobayashi. Is there anything I just said that you don't understand? No. Yifeng shook his head and said respectfully, Mr. Shuimu's explanation of the will of fire is incisive and profound, and the students have gained a lot. Then you are. Shuimu looked puzzled. At this moment, Yifeng was the focus of everyone's attention, including Shuimu, and everyone in the classroom turned their eyes to him. Only Shikamaru felt something was wrong. He knew his good friend very well, and he never raised his hand to show off during class. Today was so uncharacteristic, he always felt that something extraordinary would happen. Sure enough, in the next moment, Yifeng hesitated and said, Teacher Shuimu, do you remember what you did the day before yesterday? What? Shuimu hadn't reacted yet. The day before yesterday afternoon, by the riverbank, you bent down and performed aerobic breathing movements towards a small red carp. Yifeng said, stretching out his palm and still fiddling with it. Students are very curious. I wonder what you were doing at that time. Stupid. As soon as this was said, the whole audience fell into a stalemate. The students looked at Shuimu with a different look, surprised, horrified, and unbelievable. This teacher Shuimu, who looks gentle on the outside, actually. How could it be? How did you know? Shuimu was caught off guard and blurted out before he had time to think. After reacting, he quickly changed his words and gritted his teeth and said, Shaolin, the teacher doesn't know what you are talking about at all. Now, sit down. At the end, his tone became heavier, and his expression was slightly out of control. This is also natural. Who can keep his face after doing such a weird thing and being discovered by his own students? What's more, Shuimu is a face-loving person. Yifeng's revelation is a heavy blow to him. Yes, Yifeng pretended to be very obedient and sat down, and a prompt popped up in front of him. Option task completed. Congratulations on obtaining 20 years of chakra energy. Chakra. This option system can actually directly obtain chakra. 20 years is equivalent to directly reducing the total amount of chakra in Yifeng's body to the level of 30 years old. Feeling the surging energy flowing through his meridians, Yifeng took a deep breath. He, a salted fish, now has some power to turn over, but he can't be happy at all. Hey, Naruto's carefree voice suddenly sounded in the classroom, and he looked at Shikamaru and said, bend over and breathe aerobically towards the little red carp. What does that mean? Shut up. Shikamaru raised his voice to remind him, but it was too late. Uzumaki Naruto, Kobayashi Yifeng, you two get out of the classroom. Shuimu's face flushed, and he shouted angrily. But Naruto wanted to say something else, but was pulled by Yifeng, and the two walked out of the classroom door in disgrace. Sorry. Yifeng felt that he had implicated the little yellow-haired boy next to him, and spoke with apology. Ah, it's okay. Naruto waved his hand indifferently, his face still full of curiosity, and said, but I want to know, what did you mean by what you just said? Don't ask, it's still too early for you. Yifeng patted his shoulder and looked up at the sky. Tisk, isn't it too early for you? Kushina's voice sounded. That's different, Yifeng said calmly. Oh, I'm a man who dares to confess to my good brother's mother. This is nothing to me. You still feel proud, right? Kushina twitched her lips. I can't say I'm proud, I'm just helpless. Yifeng opened his dead fish eyes and sighed. Kushina was silent for a moment, and complained, your curse is really a bit crazy. Not only is the request weird, but the punishment is even weirder. Alas, Yifeng sighed, not wanting to mention this sad thing again. After a while, Shikamaru also ran out with his head down. Huh, Alu, what are you doing? Naruto looked puzzled. Why are you called Alu? Don't learn bad things from Yifeng, the fool. Shikamaru twitched his mouth and said lightly, it's too stuffy in the classroom, come out for some fresh air. You are worthy of being our good brother Alu. Yifeng gave him a thumbs up. Shikamaru's defense was broken immediately, veins popped out on his forehead as he said, I've been told not to call me Alu, it's poisonous. Okay, Alu, no problem, Alu. Get lost. Good brothers for life. You made me feel with your actions that it was worth sacrificing your moral integrity to save your mother. I regret coming out now. Several people were laughing and joking outside the classroom, but Mr. Mizuki in the classroom was gloomy at the moment. He had admitted his embarrassing behavior in disguise before, and you can imagine what his reputation would be like in the future. His life, future and prospects in Konoha have been ruined. That Shaolin Yifeng really deserves to die. And that little demon fox, too. Mizuki wanted to rush out of the classroom immediately and cut off the heads of the two little fools with a kunai and kick them like a ball, but the remaining little rationality still prevented him from doing such an impulsive thing directly. Revenge must be taken, but now is not the time. At this point, there is only that way. Mizuki secretly made up his mind and prepared to contact that adult as soon as he returned tonight. The sky gradually darkened, and the night sky was dotted with stars. The lights in the Hokage's office were still bright. Sarutobi Hiruzen, holding a pipe in his mouth, asked kindly, Oruka, has Naruto been good in school recently? This kind of conversation is repeated every month. Oruka felt that this was the Hokage's care and love for Naruto, but in fact the deeper purpose was to ensure that the Jinchuriki would not be out of control. In the past, Oruka would always smile and talk about Naruto's various performances in school. But today, his expression was subtle and complicated. What happened? Sarutobi Hiruzen was old and shrewd, and he felt something was wrong from the other party's face. Third generation, Naruto was in the Will of Fire class today. Oruka turned his head away and whispered, he was kicked out of the class by Mizuki teacher. Is that so? Sarutobi Hiruzen secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He thought something had happened to Naruto. Being kicked out of class is a common occurrence for Naruto. However, as a Hokage, he couldn't show that he didn't care. Instead, he asked patiently, what happened? I asked the students in the class. Yifeng is the source of the incident. Oruka lowered his head with a tangled expression. Yifeng, Kobayashi Yifeng. Sarutobi Hiruzen knew all about Naruto's friends. In his eyes, Kobayashi Yifeng's background was very simple. He was a descendant of Konoha Tadayoshi and grew up in Konoha orphanage. He was not a brilliant and talented ninja, nor was he a waste at the end of the class. To sum it up in Sarutobi Hiruzen's own words, he was just ordinary. He didn't object to this ordinary civilian ninja dating Naruto, so he let their relationship go. Yes, Oruka paused and continued. Yifeng told Mr. Mizuki's embarrassing story in public in class, and Naruto followed and asked questions, which caused Mr. Mizuki's anger. His evaluation was very objective, and he did not favor any party. Embarrassing story. This aroused Sarutobi Hiruzen's interest, and he raised his eyebrows and asked, what embarrassing story? It was the afternoon before yesterday. Yifeng saw Mr. Mizuki bending down to a fish to perform aerobic breathing movements. Even though he was not the person involved, Oruka felt very embarrassed when talking about this, and his face turned red. He might be very curious, so he asked Mr. Mizuki what he was doing in public. Bang! Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes widened, and the pipe in his hand knocked on the table. Yes, to a fish. Yes, it is said that it was a red carp. Is this true? Although there was a denial afterwards, the first sentence Mr. Mizuki answered at the time was, how did you know? Hiss. Sarutobi Hiruzen supported the corner of the table with one hand, and he couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Fish. He actually made a fish, respiratory. They Konoha, there is such a talent. As the night deepened, Oruka had already said goodbye and left the Hokage's office. Sarutobi Hiruzen did not leave, with a cigarette in his mouth, and his mind was still thinking about Mizuki and the fish. How did he do it? What kind of brain circuit could make Mizuki do such a thing? I can't figure it out. Sarutobi Hiruzen really couldn't figure it out. People have thousands of habits, but Mizuki's actions really shocked him for a whole year. Dong dong dong. A low knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned and said lightly, "Come in." The man was leaning on a cane. His head, right eye and the entire right arm were wrapped in bandages, his face was deeply wrinkled, and he exuded a gloomy temperament. "It's you, Danzo." Sarutobi Hiruzen called out the other party's name, and said with a puzzled expression, "It's so late, what's the matter?" Danzo didn't waste any more words and went straight to the point. "You already know it, right, Hiruzen?" "You know it too." Sarutobi Hiruzen stared with surprise. HMPH, don't underestimate the intelligence capabilities of the old man's root organization. Danzo raised his head with an arrogant look. Your root organization will even collect this kind of intelligence. Intelligence is not about size, but about being able to grasp the situation. Ah, what does this have to do with the situation? Sarutobi Hiruzen opened his mouth and said in surprise, "Is this popular in the ninja world now?" Danzo sat opposite Sarutobi Hiruzen and said indifferently, "It's hard to say about the entire ninja world, but it does happen frequently in the small countries around us." Hiss. Sarutobi Hiruzen took a breath of cold air and said in disbelief, "The world now is really desperate." Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't know how to describe it except for being crazy. "I thought Mizuki was just an isolated case, but it turned out to be a popular trend in the surrounding small countries. With this, he won't dare to eat fish in the future." "Give the order, Hiruzen," Danzo said lightly with empty eyes. "Now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." What? Sarutobi Hiruzen was confused and said in a tentative tone, "Anyway, this can only be regarded as a personal behavior. Isn't it a bit too much to give an order to prohibit it?" Danzo was silent for a moment, frowned and said, "Hiruzen, what are you talking about? Aren't we talking about the same thing?" Sarutobi Hiruzen asked in confusion. "There was a riot in the Land of Waves. Mizuki of the ninja school a fish." The two spoke at the same time, and the atmosphere in the office froze instantly. A fish. Even Danzo showed an unbelievable expression when he heard this, with his mouth slightly open. Ahem, turmoil. Sarutobi Hiruzen coughed dryly, pretending to be calm and turned his face away. What happened in the Land of Waves? The fishermen and boatmen in the Land of Waves were overwhelmed and launched a rebellion against major ocean-going and fishing companies. Danzo paused slightly and said in a low voice, "Hiruzen, is there really someone in our village who is raping fish?" It can basically be determined to be true. Sarutobi Hiruzen took a puff of cigarette and nodded, "But the turmoil in the Land of Waves has nothing to do with us. What order do you want me to give?" "Send the ninjas of Konoha to come forward and completely control the entire Land of Waves." Danzo raised his left hand, clenching his 5 fingers. "No, this is impossible." Sarutobi Hiruzen refused decisively, his eyes firm. "If it is discovered by other ninja villages, it will definitely cause serious international problems. It may even cause a war. As long as we take control of the Land of Waves as soon as possible with thunderous means, why fear war?" "Danzo, you are too radical. Konoha has just ended the war a few years ago, and now it needs to recuperate. You are too stupid, Hiruzen. Ignoring such a great opportunity is simply a woman's kindness. No need to say more, Danzo." Sarutobi Hiruzen waved his hand and sighed, "It's late now, it's time to rest." "You will regret it, Hiruzen." Danzo swung his sleeves and slammed the door. Looking at the back of his old friend leaving, Sarutobi Hiruzen stood up and looked out the window. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse, and Konoha was also lit up with thousands of lights. This beautiful and warm night view reminded him of Mizuki again. His family seemed to live in the southern neighborhood. Sarutobi Hiruzen walked to the desk and lifted the cloth covering the crystal ball. After being exposed in public by Kobayashi Ifang, Shuimu shouldn't do such strange things again. But what if this guy gets more excited because of being exposed? It's not impossible. Sarutobi Hiruzen has seen similar perverts before. Of course, he is not interested in Shuimu as a man. Sarutobi Hiruzen thinks that his orientation has always been normal. He is just pure and good. Strange, how could such a wonderful thing be done? The crystal ball showed the picture, and the location of Southern District was selected by Sarutobi Hiruzen. He did not see the famous scene he wanted, but saw Mizuki chatting with a suspicious man in black. Konoha, Southern District. I will go to Lord Orochimaru's base tomorrow evening. Mizuki whispered to the man in black. Originally, he planned to make some achievements in Konoha first, so that he would be valued by Orochimaru when he went to join him. But now, it can only be said that plans cannot keep up with changes. If he doesn't leave, he will be infamous in Konoha for thousands of years. It's all because of that stinky kid named Xiaolin Yifeng. He really deserves to die. Just think it over, but why tomorrow? The man in black had a hoarse voice, but it was obvious that he was a man. I have another thing to solve. Mizuki's eyes burst with murderous intent. Okay. The man in black didn't ask any more questions and nodded. We'll meet here tomorrow evening. After the brief conversation, the two men went their separate ways. The man in black headed eastward, and when he passed a bush, he suddenly felt something was wrong. It was too late to turn back, and a long knife was placed on his neck. This is the Anbu of Konoha, come with us. On the other side, Shuimu's destination was the west of Konoha. He found out from the archives of the ninja school that Xiaolin Yifeng's residence was here, and he would separate his body tonight. Then go find the little demon fox, trick him out and let him see the miserable state of his friend with his own eyes. When he is most desperate, pierce his throat with a kunai, and that scene will definitely be wonderful. We're here. Looking at the lighted hut in front of him, Shuimu stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. It's hunting time, he can't wait any longer. Looking around and seeing no one, Shuimu chose to open the door and enter the house. He was not afraid of the brat running away, nor did he care about the other party's screams. In the face of absolute strength, all these struggles were in vain. How could it be? No one. To Shuimu's surprise, his prey was not in the house. Although the lights were on, the whole hut was empty. Mr. Shuimu, are you looking for me? A playful voice sounded from behind Shuimu, which made him stunned for a moment. Taking advantage of this gap, a shuriken flew past his hair and nailed to the pillar behind him. Turning around, Shuimu touched his hair, looked at the boy in front of him and laughed wildly. You were really a waste, Kobayashi. You can still miss the shuriken with such a good opportunity. If you hit it just now, you can at least hurt me a little. Now, you can only die with this regret. Shuimu's face was ferocious, grabbing the kunai in his hand and rushing towards Yifeng. But before he could take a step, his legs felt tight. What? Shuimu lowered his head and found that his lower body was tightly tied by steel wires. You did it. When? Yifeng pointed at the shuriken stuck on the pillar behind him. The hanging steel wire reflected an orange halo under the light. Shuimu's face turned green with anger. He knew that the shuriken just now was just a feint, and the real purpose was to build this trap. Stinky brat, do you really think that you can? Of course I didn't think that I could trap you just like this, Teacher Shuimu. Yifeng's dead fish eyes narrowed slightly, and his hands formed a seal. For a chunin like you, I have been on high alert. That technique is. Shuimu's eyes widened and stared. Wait, don't. Fire escape phoenix fairy flower technique. Yifeng's cheeks bulged, and several flames spewed out of his mouth. Boom. The flames directly ignited the kerosene on the surface of the steel wire, and along the conduction, they directly enveloped Shuimu's entire body. Looking at Shuimu, who was on fire and screaming in front of him, the firelight shone on Yifeng's face, flickering. Early morning light. Yifeng woke up from his room, stretched, dressed and prepared to go out. Kushina's distinctive voice sounded in his mind. Brush your teeth, wash your face. Oh, Yifeng sighed with dead eyes and walked into the bathroom obediently. That's right, young people should pay attention to their image. Kushina smiled with satisfaction. Okay, you are an old mother and you were right. Yifeng rolled his eyes. Ha ha ha. Kushina laughed even louder, and said meaningfully, if you were my son, you wouldn't have dead eyes like this. It will become the largest number in the poker card, right? Yifeng counterattacked mercilessly. You mock your good brother like this. Kushina's tone was quite dissatisfied, and then she said proudly, even if Naruto is a clown, at least he dares to confess to the girl he likes. Humph, he is worthy of being my son. So, have I never confessed? Yifeng asked back. Kushina was speechless and choked. Old mother, I need to go to the toilet. Yifeng reminded. Well, close your eyes. Kushina's muffled voice sounded. The two of them are now in a very wonderful symbiotic state. Kushina in the Soul Pearl can sense everything outside through Yifeng's body. Including going to the toilet and taking a bath. If she opens her eyes, she can really see everything. Do you think the third generation Hokage will look for me today? Yifeng asked suddenly. It should be. Kushina was silent for a moment, and analyzed. A student who has not graduated from the ninja school can kill a chunin. No matter what era he is in, he can be considered a genius. The old man of the third generation has always been very rare for geniuses. Very interesting. What? The younger the person is, the more he can kill people. The more talented he is. Ninjas are really cruel creatures. Alas, Kushina did not comment on Yifeng's conclusion, but just sighed slightly. Young man, it's crooked. Ah, thank you. Yifeng looked down and quickly straightened it. He suddenly reacted after tying his belt, and his mouth twitched fiercely. Old mother, didn't you say you closed your eyes? I was chatting with you, so I opened them subconsciously. Kushina said indifferently, it doesn't matter. You're just a child in my eyes anyway, it's not a big deal. I'm the one who's at a disadvantage. Don't children have the right to privacy? Yifeng retorted angrily, picked up his backpack and walked out of the house. Ninja school. Yifeng walked into the classroom and found that Shikamaru and Naruto were already sitting in their seats. Yifeng, here. Naruto waved at him loudly with a smile on his face. This silly look, I don't know who he follows. Kushina couldn't help but complain. During the time she was staying in Yifeng's body, she had a deep understanding of how her son was treated in Konoha in the past few years. If it weren't for Yifeng, a good brother who often lent a helping hand, this child would be half useless even if he could survive until now. But even though fate treated his child so cruelly, he could still greet people with a smile every day, which made Kushina feel distressed and guilty. But at the same time, the silliness that occasionally emanated from Naruto made her very nervous. Neither she nor Minato were such silly types. This child obviously had excellent genes, so why did he grow so crooked? No matter who he is, he was born by your old mother after all. Yifeng sighed and looked at the two good brothers opposite him. Hey, why did you two come so early today? I was woken up by my mother and dragged me to do morning exercises early in the morning. Shikamaru yawned, looking helpless. The milk I drank yesterday was expired, and I felt a stomachache in the morning. Naruto scratched his head and told his embarrassing story without caring. You are an idiot, you know it's expired but you still drink it. Yifeng was speechless and reached out to knock on his head. It hurts. Naruto held his head and grimaced in pain. You actually hit me. Don't get me wrong, your mother told me to do it. Yifeng opened his eyes and said calmly, by the way, let me buy you 2 sets of homework after school as punishment. No, are you a devil? Naruto was overwhelmed when he heard the word homework. Mother, you heard it, your son said you are a devil. Yifeng said gloatingly. What does it have to do with me? You did it. Kushina didn't admit it at all. Okay, you won't admit it even if you put on your pants, right? It's so funny, I don't have any pants now. Yifeng choked instantly and couldn't speak. Big news. Quote, a student rushed into the classroom and shouted at the top of his voice, I just heard the inside news, Mr. Mizuki has resigned. What? Resigned? Is it true? He just finished our first lesson yesterday, and he resigned today. The classroom was in an uproar, and the students immediately talked about it. Ino, what do you think? Sakura, who was sitting in the front row of Yifeng and the others, whispered. It must be related to that incident. Yamanaka Ino said, glancing at Yifeng from time to time and said, it also reflects from the side that he is probably really interested in fish. Really, it's unbelievable. Sakura took a breath, with a look of horror on her face. Most children in the ninja world are precocious and know a lot about men and women. Except for Naruto, he is just a little fool at this stage. Even if he is Sakura's dog, it is out of instinct. Mizuki has resigned. Shikamaru raised his eyebrows and looked at Yifeng and said, you don't seem surprised at all. After the voice fell, Sakura and Naruto also cast their eyes on Yifeng at the same time. Just as Shikamaru said, the boy's expression seemed very calm, and he spread his hands and said, yes, I knew it last night. Last night? Sakura frowned and asked curiously, how did you know last night? The evil Mizuki didn't sleep well in the middle of the night and came to me for revenge. Yifeng rested his head on the back of the chair and said lazily, as a result, I was careless for a moment and lost half my life. Stupid. After listening to his explanation, Sakura, Naruto, Ino and Shikamaru fell into a collective daze. Puff. Naruto was the first to lose his temper, holding his stomach and laughing, Mizuki is really an idiot. Hey, you actually believe it? Quote. Sakura's mouth twitched, and she couldn't help but complain. Let's not talk about whether Mr. Mizuki would take such revenge. He is a formal ninja, but his student has lost half his life. This is impossible. I'm curious, how did Yifeng do it? Ino blinked, and asked with a smile, is it your ninjutsu, the starry sky technique? Hiss. When Shikamaru heard the name of this technique, he felt a phantom pain in his eyes. Choose. The golden system interface popped up again, and the lazy expression on Yifeng's face suddenly turned into a twitch. 1. Explain your advanced version of Defense Starry Sky to all classmates in the class and get recognition. 2. Untie your belt angrily facing Ino and let her taste your new technique flying stream straight down 3,000 feet. This time there are only 2 options, which seems quite humane, but Yifeng just wants to ask at this moment the mother of the waiting system. What the hell is the first option? How come he, the original creator, doesn't know that there is an advanced version of the starry sky? The second one is even more of a novice among the newborns, a waterfall falling straight down 3,000 feet. It sounds quite poetic at first, Levi, right? But combined with unbuttoning the belt and appreciating new techniques, Yifeng's brain has already presented a taboo picture. It can be said that no matter which one he chooses today, his remaining moral integrity will be directly lost. But for the sake of his friend's mother, he can only choose the lesser of 2 evils. Pa! Yifeng stood up suddenly and clapped his hands twice in the astonished eyes of Ino, Sakura, Naruto and Shikamaru. The sound was very loud, and the students who were originally chatting were attracted to their attention. Ashan, you actually underestimated my baby's breath, right? Yifeng looked down at Ino, and his dead fish eyes became extremely oppressive at this moment. I didn't. Ino was frightened by his momentum, and the whole person was stunned for a few seconds. After reacting, the corner of his mouth twitched suddenly. Hey, what kind of name is Ashan? Do you know? Yifeng ignored her complaints, looked around with deep eyes and said, because he is Shikamaru, my good brother. That's why I used the ordinary version of Yellow Sand Baby's breath before. So, I have to thank you. Shikamaru whispered with a frown on his face. Normal version. Sakura was curious about another question, and asked with a confused expression, do you have other versions besides the normal version? Of course. Yifeng nodded and said, if it is an advanced version, it will not use yellow sand. Then what to use? Naruto scratched his head and couldn't help but continue to ask. Defense. Under the gaze of the classmates, Yifeng suppressed his inner shame and said, if I use the advanced version of the Defense Starry Sky, may I ask how you should deal with it? Hiss. The whole classroom was filled with a sound of gasps. All the classmates, both male and female, looked at Yifeng with amazing eyes. Even Uchiha Sasuke, who usually keeps aloof, has his eyes wide open at this moment, and cold sweat is pouring down his forehead. This Yifeng is really a talent. What kind of brain circuit can come up with such a vicious trick as Defense Starry Sky? Deal with it. How to deal with this thing? Let alone this group of students, even if the Hokage came, there would be no solution to this move, right? Option mission completed. Congratulations on obtaining the 4-attribute chakra nature change of water, fire, wind, and earth. The system reward directly gave Yifeng the 4-attribute chakra nature change, plus the thunder attribute he already possessed. This wave of 5 attribute chakras is directly gathered. But if there is a choice, Yifeng would rather not have it. Without strength, he can lie down and be a salted fish, but losing his integrity will cause great harm to his heart. The dog system misled me. Yifeng looked calm on the surface, but his heart was full of grief and indignation. At this time, Uruka's slightly complicated voice sounded outside the door. Xiaolin Yifeng, come with me. The head teacher with a scar on his face was also quite shocked at this moment, obviously hearing Yifeng's shocking speech before. The defense is full of stars. Hiyumino Uruka has always been law-abiding and honest, how could he teach such a talented student? With a lot of emotion in his heart, Iruka walked towards the principal's office with Yifeng with a melancholy face. Looking at the backs of the two people leaving, Shikamaru frowned slightly and murmured, "Is that Mizuki guy really injured by Yifeng?" Outside the principal's office, Iruka knocked on the door gently. "Come in. Go by yourself, be careful when you speak." After all, he is his student, so Iruka reminded him before leaving. Yifeng pushed the door and entered the room. As expected, the third-generation Hokage with gray hair and beard came into his eyes. The old man is so old now. Kushina sighed. Before she met Sarutobi Hiruzen, she had always been resentful of him, but after seeing him, she felt a little sad. Of course you will have kidney deficiency if you use a crystal ball to spy every day. If you have kidney deficiency, you will naturally look old. Yifeng said lightly. PFF. Ha ha ha. Kushina laughed heartily and said, "You little fool, you are so poisonous." "I like to tell the truth." Yifeng secretly criticized the old man in front of Kushina in his heart, but on the surface he saluted with neither servility nor arrogance. "Hokage, you are looking for me. You are here, Yifeng." Sarutobi Hiruzen looked Yifeng up and down and praised him. "You are worthy of being the child of Naoto and Kaori, you are really a good-looking man." "Hokage, you are too kind." Yifeng said softly. "Do you know why I called you here?" Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled and got straight to the point. "What about Teacher Mizuki?" Yifeng asked tentatively. "You don't have to call him teacher, Mizuki is a scum." Sarutobi Hiruzen's expression became solemn, and he said coldly, "In fact, he has already colluded with the rebel ninjas of Konoha and tried to steal the village's secrets." "Is that so?" Yifeng showed just the right amount of surprise on his face. Yifeng, who had read the original work, actually knew very well that Mizuki was actually a nail planted by Orochimaru in Konoha. "You did a great job this time, Yifeng." Sarutobi Hiruzen patted Yifeng's shoulder and said with satisfaction, "As a student of the ninja school, you actually captured a chunin by yourself. It's amazing." "It was Mizuki who didn't notice the trap I set," Yifeng said calmly without being arrogant. "No need to be too modest." Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head and said lightly, "I saw the whole process of you taking Mizuki down yesterday. Whether it is the grasp of timing or the use of ninjutsu, you are enough to be called a genius." Yifeng didn't say anything else, just lowered his head slightly. "You have made a great contribution this time. Have you thought about what reward you want?" Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at him with his eyes and said in an expectant tone. "Choose." Without waiting for Yifeng to answer, the golden option interface popped up again. 1. I want to be Naruto's father. 2. I want to be Danzo's crotch boy. 3. I want the patinated boxer pants on you. Yifeng was stunned, and the corners of his mouth could not help but twitch. It started again, this dog system that messes with people's mentality. This boy, the patinated boxer briefs, who are you disgusted by listing these two options? Taking a deep breath, Yifeng didn't even dare to look up, and said intermittently, I want to be Naruto's father. Question mark. Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes widened and fell into a stagnation. Hey, what are you talking about, you little brat? Kushina's unbelievable voice sounded. She was still watching the show with relish in the soul beads, but now she has become the show. Curse, it's a curse. Yifeng hurriedly comforted. Really, I swear by my good brother's mother. Options completed. Congratulations on obtaining 20 years of chakra. Another 20 years of chakra. Yifeng, who is only 10 years old, has practiced for 40 years without doing anything. Of course it was cool. And for some reason, the choice I made this time was not as against my will as before. Sarutobi Hiruzen on the opposite side was still in a daze, and it took him a long time to react. Yifeng, some things can't be said casually. Yes, Lord Hokage, Yifeng said respectfully. I know, you want to give Naruto more care, right? Sarutobi Hiruzen felt that he had seen through Yifeng's thoughts, and said in a serious tone, but you shouldn't say that, Naruto's father would have objections if he were still alive. No, you stinky old man. Kushina said angrily, how can you talk like that? Don't I have any objections? I understand, Lord Hokage. Yifeng responded again. You can change to another reward. Sarutobi Hiruzen paused and said, but it can't be too outrageous. This time the system did not interfere again, and Yifeng spoke smoothly. I think I can go out to the village when I have time. Otonin Village, underground laboratory. Orochimaru, with long black hair and pale skin, was concentrating on dissecting the subject on the operating table. He first took out the spleen for observation, then the liver, lungs, and finally the heart. Orochimaru's entire right arm was stained red with blood, but he didn't care. After completing the observation, he stuffed the organs back into the abdominal cavity of the subject and said in a hoarse voice, "Get rid of this material, Kabuto. He is no longer useful." "Yes." Kabuto, the pharmacist wearing round-framed glasses, nodded respectfully, took out 2 bottles of medicine from his arms and poured them on the subject. Swish. It can be seen with the naked eye that the long-dead subject was melted in an instant, leaving only a few pieces of underwear on the operating table. Kabuto. Orochimaru wiped the remaining blood on his arm with a towel. His pale yellow vertical pupils stared at his subordinate like a venomous snake and said, "Do you come here to tell me any good news? It should be bad news." Kabuto Yakushi lowered his head and said respectfully, "Kusano and Mizuki were captured by Konoha's people." Kusano and Mizuki. Orochimaru pondered for a moment and seemed to remember who these 2 people were. He sneered and said, "They are just 2 trash. This kind of thing is not bad news." "I understand, Lord Orochimaru." "Kabuto, do you have anything else to say to me?" "No, Lord Orochimaru." Kabuto Yakushi bowed his body and did not dare to let Orochimaru see his face. In fact, the capture of the 2 spies, Kusano and Mizuki, also involved a piece of information. Among them, the one who captured Mizuki was a 3rd-year student of Konoha Ninja School, named Zhaolin Yifang. Kabuto Yakushi did not tell this information. This child was his adopted brother in the orphanage. Thanks to this little brother who sent him a message in time, he didn't kill each other with Nanoyu. Orochimaru stared at Kabuto Yakushi with a playful look in his eyes. "Kabuto, I'm going to meet some interesting people these 2 days. I plan to let you take care of the Sound Village for the time being." He actually saw that the subordinate in front of him was hiding something from him, but he didn't care. Kabuto Yakushi was a very useful tool for him, and there was nothing wrong with giving him some privileges appropriately. And Orochimaru also believed that Kabuto Yakushi was a smart enough person and should know what it meant to stop when enough was enough. "Yes." Kabuto Yakushi's forehead was sweating coldly and he responded respectfully. The night gradually deepened. Yifang's figure passed through the dense forest, and the scenery on both sides passed by quickly. "Slow down and pay attention to your feet," Kushina reminded. "Don't panic, I'm very stable." Yifang's voice was very confident. "I don't understand, what are you in such a hurry for?" Kushina sighed and said, "You just got the Hokage's order and you left the village. You'll know when we get there." Yifang took a breath and sped up again. "You're so secretive, you should at least tell me where the destination is." Kusa Village. At this moment, in Kusa Village. Flutter. The oil lamp in the red-haired girl's hand fell to the ground, and she covered her mouth tightly. Her pupils reflected an extremely terrifying scene. Several ninjas from the same village were lying on her mother's arms, thighs and shoulders like evil spirits, sucking her life force. Fear. Strong fear invaded the red-haired girl's brain, making her body stiff as if petrified. But after the fear, there was an extreme anger. She wanted to rush forward to save her mother, even if she was about to face a group of terrible evil spirits. But just as the girl was about to rush forward, a tall and strong figure blocked her way. "Is it you?" The red-haired girl trembled and looked terrified. Koishikawa Ryun, the head of the Kusagakure village operations department. He was undoubtedly a jonin and had experienced many battles. "Back off, kid." Koishikawa Ryun looked down at Karin and said expressionlessly, "It was your mother's last wish to let you live. Don't let her down." "Why?" Tears welled up in Karin's eyes and she shouted, "Why must my mother sacrifice herself? This is for the future of the land of grass." Koishikawa Ryun said calmly, "You should know that we are fighting the villains of the land of grass. If our main ninjas can recover as soon as possible, the balance of victory will tilt to our side." "No, I don't want it." Karin shook her head frantically, her face full of anger. "I don't care about the victory of the land of grass, I only want my mother. Get out of my way." Even though she was usually afraid of the chief of operations, at this moment, Karin was still brave enough for her mother, dare to wave his fist at him. HMPH, a stubborn brat. Xiao Shichuan Luyun curled his lips into a sneer and also waved his fist to meet the attack. He did not intend to kill the disobedient child in front of him directly. The other party's bloodline is still very useful for the Kusagakure village. Just need to punish her appropriately and knock her out. However, just as his fist was about to touch Karin's forehead, a slightly short figure blocked Karin in front of her. Boom! There was a muffled sound in the air, and Xiao Shichuan Luyun's body flew backwards directly. Before landing, the short figure suddenly appeared at his waist and abdomen as if teleporting. Raise your fist and punch it down. Boom! Xiao Shichuan Luyun's body was pierced through the ground, smashing a pit with a diameter of several meters. A mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth, and his consciousness fell into disarray. Dust flew all over the sky, and strong airflow overflowed. The moonlight sprinkled on the boy, and at this moment he was like a celestial being descending to earth, with great power. Seeing this scene, Xiao Xionglan was stunned, with a face full of shock. As if he felt her gaze, the boy glanced at her and said, "Are you okay?" "Yes, I'm fine." Xiao Xionglan nodded blankly, and then reacted and said, "But my mother." "Minister Koishikawa, what's going on? Who are you, kid?" The people of the Kusagakure village who heard the noise came out of the hut one after another, and saw the operations minister lying on the ground with a surprised look on his face. Yi Feng didn't waste any more words with them, and directly slapped the ground with his hands. "Earth escape, earth piercing. Not good. Get out of the way." Spikes suddenly appeared on the ground, first piercing through the two ninjas who couldn't dodge in time. The other Kusagakure ninjas reacted quickly and avoided the first wave of attacks from the ground spikes. But they underestimated the range of Yi Feng's ninjutsu. Even if they were far away from the center of the ninjutsu, they still couldn't escape the fate of death. Puff, puff. These grass ninjas who sucked the life of Karin's mother like evil spirits were directly strung together into blood gourds. The whole scene was like a scene from hell. A clearing in the forest outside Kusagakure village. Beside the lit bonfire, a girl with short gray-brown hair had her hands glowing with light, and was trying her best to treat Karin's mother. She didn't withdraw her hands until she was exhausted and a layer of cold sweat oozed from her forehead. "Mommy, how is it?" Yi Feng looked at the short-haired girl and asked in a low voice. The girl named Mommy didn't say anything, but just shook her head at him regretfully. "Sorry. You have tried your best." Yi Feng patted her shoulder. "If I had asked someone to leave a signal for you earlier." Mommy lowered her head, looking guilty. She and Yi Feng were childhood friends, and they grew up in Konoha orphanage since childhood. Unlike Yi Feng's mediocrity, this child is very talented in medical ninjutsu. She was carefully taught by the pharmacist Nono for 2 years until she was adopted by a wealthy businessman at the age of 8. The wealthy businessman later bought the entire street in the Land of Grass and chose to settle there, and Mommy naturally became a member of the Land of Grass. Although they are far apart, their relationship has not faded. Mammy's wealthy adoptive mother is in the food business, and her business scope radiates half of the ninja world. Mommy herself often follows her adoptive mother around, and occasionally returns to Konoha to have a small gathering with Yi Feng. Yi Feng naturally told Mommy about the situation of Karin and her daughter. She is kind-hearted and has always secretly cared for the mother and daughter. But Mommy and her adoptive mother are just businessmen after all, and they can't influence the situation of the grass village at all. When the war comes, Karin's mother is still designated as a blood recovery package by the grass village's top leaders as in the original work. Mommy, who felt something was wrong, left a signal that only she and Yi Feng understood when her caravan went to Konoha to sell goods. She originally wanted Yi Feng to think of a solution, but she never expected that her childhood friend would choose to break into the Kusagakure village and rob people. The people were robbed, but it was too late after all. It would be useless if you sent a signal earlier. It can only be said that it was a coincidence. Yi Feng glanced at the little Karin with a dazed look and sighed. If he had sent a signal earlier, he would not have been strong enough, and it would have been useless if he came. "Sorry, Mrs. Kushina." Yi Feng walked to Karin's mother and squatted down. Looking at the withered red-haired woman in front of him, he apologized and said, "I wanted to give you a surprise." "It's not your fault, young man." Kushina's voice was unusually gentle at this moment, like a trickle of water. "I have received the surprise you gave me." At this time, she finally understood why Yifeng asked the third-generation old man for the freedom to leave the village as a reward. Not for himself, but for her. Faced with this sincere love, it would be a lie for Kushina to say that she was not moved. If she was still a young girl and had not married, she would not only be moved, but also moved, right? Madam, I hate this world. Yifeng's desire to change everything became stronger. Looking at the miserable mother Karin in front of him, there was a fire burning in his heart. What do you want to do? Kushina could sense the heat in his chest, and even had an illusion. If it was sprayed out, it could even set the world on fire. I want to transform it. Yifeng's face was solemn and his tone was firm. Turning this bloody and dirty world into his ideal paradise is not only for the dead mother Karin in front of him, but also for everyone who lives in this world and suffers. After a sigh of relief, Yifeng was about to stand up, but his expression suddenly froze at this time. Transform. Kushina did not notice his abnormality, and was still thinking about the meaning of the word, transformation. After thinking for a long time without any clue, he gave up struggling and said, "Tell me, what does transformation mean?" Kushina frowned when there was no response. "Hey, boy. Old mother, stop arguing, I'm thinking." A familiar option interface appeared in front of Yifeng, with a golden halo shining brightly. Choose. 1. Use the holy water of life in your mouth to save Karin's mother by replenishing magic. 2. Summon Karin's mother's ghost through the impure world reincarnation and let her accompany your wife Kushina. 3. While it's hot. While it's hot, this BYD system is really as perverted as ever. First of all, the third option is eliminated first. The remaining 1 and 2 are actually not that difficult to choose. After all, there is still a difference between a real human body and a ghost. Who wants to die if they can live well? But the key is, where did he get the holy water of life from his mouth? This system, isn't it just to make me take advantage of the dead? Wait, I can't think that way. I didn't know how to reincarnate at first, and after I made the choice, I was directly indoctrinated with a set of reincarnation method. Maybe it will be the same this time. Taking a deep breath, Yifeng decided to do it. The squatting body turned into a kneeling posture, and his head gradually approached Karin's mother. Boy, are you doing a kidney? Seeing this scene, Kushina was stunned and said in disbelief, "Shut up, you are crazy." Curse, Yifeng replied. Curse ass. Kushina didn't believe it this time, and the whole person became very irritable. How can there be such a curse that allows you to blaspheme the dead? Even if you want to try the taboo, at least find a living person. And you too, are you just standing there and watching? Kushina was talking about Asami and Karin. The two girls were deeply shocked by Yifeng's behavior at this time, with their eyes wide open and their mouths slightly open. Incomprehensible. Yifeng's behavior beyond common sense made the two girls completely incomprehensible. So much so that the CPU was burned dry, and the brain was completely in a state of shutdown. Shut up, it's not too late for you to shut up now. Kushina's voice naturally could not reach the brains of the two girls that had completely stopped functioning, so she could only tirelessly persuade them, "There is an abyss ahead, young man." Yifeng continued to maintain his magic replenishment state, and explained in his heart, "Madam, don't make a fuss, I can save her. If you can save her, I will take your last name from now on. Hurry up and shut up, Karin's mother is already dead." Kushina got stuck here. Karin's mother, who originally looked haggard and had only skin and bones left in her body, actually began to fill up visibly. The bite marks on her shoulders, arms and calves gradually disappeared, and even the slightly gray hair became fresh. Kushina in the soul pearl widened her eyes, looking at this scene with a dull face. Miracle. In her eyes, this is simply a miracle of resurrection from the dead. How is this possible? Yifeng, what did you do? Yifeng couldn't answer at this time. He felt that Karin's mother had woken up at this time. But the soft little mouth had no intention of leaving, and was still frantically asking for it. Congratulations on your acquisition of the holy water of life reinforcement. All your body fluids have gained the power to revive life. Yifeng didn't care about the prompt of the auction reward for the time being, but just quickly pulled away. But at this time, Karin's mother was no longer limited to using her mouth. Both arms were clamped around Yifeng's head. Mom. It was not until Karin's cry that the force was relaxed. Yifeng quickly got up, wiped his mouth and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I just acted in a hurry." He felt that Karen's mother should have been unconscious before, so he apologized first and talked about the matter. "My name is Reena, Uzumaki Reena." Reaching out her hands to hug the little Karin running towards her, Mrs. Reena knelt on her knees and lowered her head and said, "My benefactor, you don't have to apologize. I am the one who should thank you for saving me. If you don't abandon me, Reena is willing to work like a cow or a horse to repay your kindness in the future." Chapter 11. The waves are surging, and a small boat is floating on the sea surface. Yifeng stood at the bow, feeling the oncoming sea breeze, and couldn't help feeling refreshed. "In this situation, I really want to compose a poem." Yifeng sighed in his heart. "Composing a poem?" Kushina was stunned and said in surprise, "You can also compose a poem? Let me hear a verse." "Oh see, you are all water. Toad, you have 4 legs." Yifeng blurted out without hesitation. Kushina fell into silence and was silent in an instant. "How to say, my poem is not bad," Yifeng said proudly. "It's very good, but please don't compose it again." Kushina's head was full of black lines, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help twitching slightly. "I shouldn't have expected this stinky boy composing a poem. Lord Yifeng, please take care of yourself." Mrs. Reena, wearing a lavender kimono, came forward with an oil paper umbrella to block the sun for him. "I told you not to call me sir." Yifeng looked at her helplessly and said, "Besides, you are not my cattle or horses. We are equals." "Yes, Sir Yifeng." Mrs. Reena nodded respectfully. "It's a ghost." Yifeng took a breath and said with a stomachache, "It seems that you didn't listen to what I said these 2 days." "Ha ha ha, I'm dying of laughter." Kushina laughed with a face full of gloating. "Do you still want to write poetry now?" "I want to jump into the sea." Yifeng looked aggrieved. "Hey, is that the country of waves in front?" Little Karin pointed to the looming buildings in front and said excitedly, "Are we there?" "Yeah, right." Yifeng nodded slightly. He had never been to the country of waves before, but according to the map, the route they took should be correct. Why go to the country of waves? First, it was to complete the task that Sarutobi Hiruzen had given him before he left the village, to find out whether there were any ninja activities in other villages in the land of waves. Second, it was to settle Reena and Karin, mother and daughter. Yifeng did not plan to bring them back to Konoha. Given the level of filthiness of the Konoha high-level officials, taking them back would be like walking out of a tiger's den and into a wolf's den. The land of waves is pretty good. One of Yifeng's most trusted people is now taking refuge in the land of waves. No. Kushina sighed and whispered, "I didn't expect so many things to happen after Minato and I died." Danzo really played a good hand of cards badly. She and Yakushi Nono were old acquaintances, and the two got along very well at the time. During the period of the 4th Hokage, Danzo was not as jumpy as he is now. At that time, under the matchmaking of Minato, the relationship between the Uchiha clan and Konoha eased a lot, and the root almost disappeared in public. When Minato and Kushina died, Sarutobi Hiruzen took power again. The situation took a sharp turn for the worse. The root expanded rapidly, the Uchiha clan was exterminated, and ninjas like Yakushi Nono who were loyal to Konoha were forced to live in seclusion in the land of waves. This is exactly as Yifeng said, the real cancer of Konoha is the rulers of Konoha. They absorb the nutrients of Konoha to make themselves stronger, and will also lead to the further destruction of Konoha. It doesn't matter, anyway, I'm not on Konoha's side. Yifeng spread his hands. "Hey, do you still want to continue your plan to transform the world?" Kushina asked. "Why not? But Reena was rescued." "It's just that Mrs. Reena was rescued, but this disgusting and dirty world has not changed." Yifeng raised his head and said lightly, "If the problem is not solved from the root, such things will still happen again." Kushina didn't say anything. She knew Yifeng was right. This child is obviously about the same age as his son, but he sees things more profoundly than anyone else in the ninja world. Sometimes Kushina would wonder why Yifeng knows so much. The ninja school would not teach such treasonous knowledge, and even the third-generation old man might not understand some of the theories proposed by Yifeng. In addition, the strange curse that would occur from time to time on the other party. Kushina felt that the boy was shrouded in mist, making it difficult to see clearly but unable to help but want to explore. "Hey, is there such a building in the land of waves?" Mrs. Reena's puzzled voice interrupted Kushina's reverie, and the eyes of several people on the boat all turned to the place she pointed. A strange cylindrical house came into everyone's eyes, shining with cold air, and appeared crystal clear under the sunlight. "Is that ice escape?" the knowledgeable Kushina said in surprise. "I'll go take a look." "Don't get close." Yifeng frowned slightly, and jumped onto the sea with his feet attached to Chakra. "Leave, everyone." Standing on the ice he created on the crystal building, the black-haired boy with a ponytail said sympathetically, "I don't want to hurt you." "Why? I've lived enough. If I don't get the reward I deserve today, my wife and children will die." "Yes, even if it's a ninja, we're not afraid." Across from the boy was a group of ragged civilians holding steel forks and hoes. Most of them were fishermen and boatmen, and they rebelled because their bosses withheld their wages. "Even if I let you pass, you can't get into that building." The black-haired boy sighed and advised kindly, "There are many ninjas in there who are more powerful than me, and they won't be merciful. If you want to live, listen to me, please go back." One of the bearded boatmen was about to refuse with a sullen face, and at this time a woman wearing glasses walked out of the crowd. Her face was gentle, and she said softly, "Since this is the good intention of this ninja master, we should not rush to refuse." "Miss Nano, the bearded boatman hesitated, as if he wanted to say something. "Please believe me, Mr. Takamura," the woman named Nano said softly. "Okay." The woman's words were obviously very important. The boatmen and fishermen headed by Takamura did not rush forward in a hurry, but dispersed in an orderly manner like the tide. "Thank you." The black-haired boy couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw this scene, and thanked Nano. "I should thank you, Ninja Master." Nano shook his head and smiled gently, "I didn't do anything to these poor people." The black-haired boy lowered his head and said nothing, ready to turn around and leave. "People shouldn't be tools, kid." Nai looked at his departing figure and suddenly said, "One of my former students said that people should learn to follow their own hearts." The black-haired boy paused and disappeared from Nai's sight without saying a word. "You are still so kind, Teacher Nono." Yifeng walked out of the alley on the side and said helplessly, "If you had let me take action just now, I could have taken him down directly. He is just a good kid who went astray, and he did let those poor people go." Nai, that is, Nono, smiled gently and said, "Long time no see, Yifeng. You have grown up. Choose. 1. Untie your belt and show your dear teacher where you really grew up. 2. Use the conscience enlargement technique to tell her that you have become a girl. 3. Kneel on one knee and propose to your teacher on the spot." Yifeng's face turned livid in an instant. Why? Yifeng's mouth twitched, and he wanted to curse when he saw the options popping up in front of him. It was obviously a beautiful scene for his disciple to reunite with his teacher, but the BYD dog system had to jump out to make trouble. Untie the belt, the conscience enlargement technique, the proposal. Choose a ghost, he doesn't want to choose any of them. He has always had only a master-disciple relationship with the pharmacist Nono, and the other party is even half a mother in his eyes. As a result, this forced option has to make things go in a strange direction. Yifeng, what's wrong? The teacher Nono on the opposite side also noticed that his disciple's face was not right at this time, and asked worriedly. Curse. Kushina, who was in Yifeng's body, reacted quickly. Yes, old mother, don't laugh at me later. Yifeng took a breath and knelt on one knee in front of Nono. Nono was stunned by the sudden action of his own disciple, and subconsciously raised his hand to help. Please marry me. Teacher Nono. Yifeng gritted his teeth and said this sentence with great difficulty. Nono was struck by lightning, and his body could not help but step back 2 steps. Karin and her daughter who came over just happened to see the scene in front of them, their eyes widened. It's said after all. Yifeng's heart collapsed, and he felt like crying but had no tears. What he was doing now was just like proposing to his own mother, and the shame was mixed with the guilt of breaking through morality. It was just a double torture. But he didn't expect that there was more torture behind it. Options completed. Congratulations on obtaining the conscience enlargement technique. Looking at his reward prompt, Yifeng's lips trembled slightly. Conscience enlargement technique. What the hell is this conscience enlargement technique? What's the point of this? My heart, which was already on the verge of collapse, was made worse at this moment. Yi Fang, what are you doing? Are you proposing to the teacher? Nono finally recovered from the shock at this time and asked stutteringly. Don't mind it. Yi Fang didn't dare to look at the other person's eyes, and lowered his head and said, Teacher Nono, please pretend that what happened just now didn't happen. Yes. Pharmacist Nono blinked, and said softly with a slightly red cheek, the teacher also thinks that it's too early now. Teacher, what did you say? Yi Fang didn't hear the other person's last sentence clearly. Well, the teacher said that such a joke is a bit too much. Pharmacist Nono came back to his senses, and the expression on his face became gentle and soft again. Yi Fang has become a bad boy. Sorry. Yi Fang did not defend himself and apologized decisively. Teacher forgives you. Nono raised his hand and touched Yi Fang's head, and said softly, would you like to introduce your two companions to me? I am Uzumaki Reena, and this is my daughter Karin. Mrs. Reena was very discerning and walked forward with her daughter, bowing and saying, thanks to Lord Yi Fang for saving us from the hell of Kusagakure village. Are you a member of Lord Kushina's clan? There are other orphans in Uzumaki. Nono showed a slight surprise, and then hurriedly said, sorry, I am rude. This is not a place to talk. Mr. Yi Fang, Mrs. Reena and Miss Karin, please follow me. From the central square of Wave Country to the right, through a winding alley. Along the way, Yi Fang saw that the people around him all held a respectful and grateful attitude towards their own teacher Nono. It seems that compared to Konoha, teacher Nono is more suitable here. Yi Fang sighed. I just did something insignificant. Nono smiled gently and brought a few people to a slightly shabby mansion and stopped. Pushing the door and entering the house, the room gave people an unexpected sense of cleanliness. Although all kinds of furnishings and utensils were obviously old objects, they were neatly arranged. Yi Fang saw the photo of herself and Kabuto Yakushi at the head of Nano's bed, and couldn't help asking, does Kabuto come to see you often? You should call Kabuto Big Brother. Nono reminded him and smiled. He is under Orochimaru, how dare he come often? It seems that he is not doing well with Orochimaru. Yi Fang shrugged and said, you have to be nervous every day, and you will be used as experimental material if you are not careful. Nono didn't say anything, but just sighed softly. The main reason why Kabuto Yakushi ran to work under Orochimaru was because of her. At the beginning, because of Danzo's order, she and Kabuto Yakushi almost killed each other. Thanks to Yi Fang's timely communication, the tragedy was avoided. But before the master and disciple could celebrate, Orochimaru showed up. In order to protect his useless teacher, Kabuto Yakushi had no choice but to become Orochimaru's subordinate. Well, I was just kidding. Looking at his teacher's sad expression, Yi Fang scratched his head and said, that guy is still quite smart, he shouldn't be sliced. How can you comfort people like this? Kushina complained. How about, mother, show your strength? Yi Fang asked for advice. Kushina snorted and said, just tell Nono that Orochimaru is not a cruel person, at least he will leave a whole body. Okay, you are worthy of being my mother. Yi Fang nodded at her in his heart and turned his eyes to Karin and her daughter. You two will stay with my teacher for the time being, is there any problem? Thank you, Lord Yi Fang, it's good here. Reena smiled. Will Lord Yi Fang come to see us often? Karin asked in a low voice. Why do you call me an adult? I'm not even as old as you. Yi Fang rolled his dead fish eyes and said helplessly, correct. I won't come to see you often, I just go home often. Yi Fang. Nanoyu was moved. She remembered that the child had said that home is where you have your own place. Now that so many years have passed, he still remembers it. But this family still has a lot of vicious neighbors that need to be dealt with. Yi Fang looked out the window and a towering building came into view. There was a golden sign on the surface of the building with the words, Kato Ocean Company, written on it. Teacher Nono, you organize those boatmen and fishermen, right? Yes. Nono did not deny it, and said very frankly, I wanted to take them to get back the hard-earned money they deserved, but I didn't expect that Kato actually hired a group of very powerful ninjas. Among them are the long-famous Kurigakure demon Momochi Zabuza, the Thunderblade Black Ho Raiga, the rock ninja Star Maruyama, and the Bear Country's human Zanzangwa. Oh, that's really incredible. Yi Fang smiled and said calmly, I'm afraid it cost a lot of money. He has the money to hire these famous ninjas, but he doesn't want to pay the boatmen and fishermen. Little Karin said in surprise. This is the arrogance unique to the ruler. Yi Feng sneered and said, he doesn't care about the money at all, he just simply doesn't allow anyone to challenge his ruling position. These rubbish, all deserve to die. The wave country is said to be a country, but in fact there is no nominal leader. This country is made up of large and small transport and fishing companies, and Gato Ocean is the leader among them. In other words, Gato is the ruler of the wave country. Now these boatmen and fishermen organized by Nanoyu dare to resist him, which Gato sees as a challenge to his status. Yi Feng, I know you are no longer the same as before. Nanoyu looked worried and said softly, you can go to Kusagakure alone to save people before you even graduate. But Zabuza's group is not comparable to the half-baked people in Kusagakure, don't be impulsive. Ah, when did I say I was going to fight alone? Yi Feng looked at his teacher with dead eyes. So what do you mean? Since Gato doesn't follow martial ethics, we can also ask for external help. Before I came, I asked Mommy to help me deliver the letter. It should be almost time. Yi Feng's mouth curled up, and his expression was confident. The waves rolled and the waves surged. Yi Feng stood at the coastline and looked into the distance. The blue sea and the distant sky merged into a line. Who did you ask for external aid? Kushina's voice sounded in his sea of consciousness. Didn't you read the letter when I wrote it? Yi Feng asked in confusion. No, Kushina took a breath and said, I was asleep at that time. Can the soul body sleep? Your soul pearl is magical. I can feel that I am growing. Every time I grow to a certain point, I will want to sleep. Is that so? It's really magical. Yi Feng nodded thoughtfully. Hey, don't change the subject. Kushina's dissatisfied voice sounded, saying, who is the external aid? You will know when you come. Yi Feng kept it a secret. You are a stinky boy who keeps people on edge, right? Kushina gritted her teeth and began to guess on her own. Is it a ninja from Konoha? PFF'd. I think Nono-sensei didn't die fast enough. Yi Feng laughed out loud. You're laughing at me, right? Kushina's voice was inaudible. Ahem, no. Yi Feng coughed lightly, turned his head and said, I just thought of the happy. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly stopped. In his sight, the soul body Kushina appeared with fangs and claws. Two arms hugged his head, and he opened his mouth and bit it. True evil spirit pounced. Although he finally bit the air and didn't hurt much, the mental shock it caused to Yi Feng was huge. HMPH. Kushina's cheeks flushed slightly when she realized that the other party was staring at her body. Pretending to be indifferent, she snorted and went back into the soul-enriching bead. Smelly boy, do you know you're wrong? In order to cover up her shyness, Kushina pretended to be angry. No, Yi Feng has not come back to his senses yet, just giving a mechanical answer. His mind is still immersed in the beautiful and graceful painting just now, and his heart is pounding. Because they are in a state of soul symbiosis, whenever Yi Feng's emotions fluctuate violently, Kushina can sense it. This time is no exception. Kushina, who feels the same, also has a trace of strange emotions. The two people who are caught in the ambiguous atmosphere did not notice that a black spot appeared above their heads. Until the black spot gradually expanded and descended from the sky, Kushina hurriedly reminded, be careful of the top of your head. Yi Feng, who reacted, looked up at the sky and his expression was slightly stunned. It turned out to be her. The figure landed, bringing a strong gust of wind and smoke. Yi Feng's bangs fluttered in front of his forehead, and his clothes rustled. After a while, the smoke dissipated. A woman wrapped in paper wings appeared in Yi Feng's sight. She stood up slowly from her crouching position, and the paper wings disappeared. The woman revealed her true appearance. She looked quite gorgeous, with purple eyeshadow on her eyes, a lip stud on her lower lip, a black robe with red clouds, and purple-blue nail polish on her hands and toes. Her light golden pupils looked around and finally fixed on Yi Feng. Are you the client? The voice was cold, as if she was an angel who was not in touch with the world. Yes, my name is Zhaolin Yi Feng. Yi Feng nodded. Akatsuki organization, codename Bai. The woman had no expression on her face and went straight to the point. Where is the mission target? That building. Yi Feng pointed to the towering Gato building in the center of the wave country and said, the enemy has more than 4 long-established Jonins, the demon Momochi Zabuza, the former Kurigakure 7 swordsman Kurochu Raiga, the former rock ninja Hoshi Maruyama, and the human Zan Zangwa of the Bear Country. Yeah, the woman responded lightly and said, your companion has paid a commission of 10 million taels. If there are only these 4, I will return you 2 million after the mission is completed. I'm not talking about money. Yi Feng scratched his head and said, what I mean is, don't you need to prepare? No, they are just 4 useless rebel ninjas. The woman said confidently. Okay, Yi Feng didn't persuade him anymore. Do you want the target to live or die? The woman asked again. If possible, try to keep them alive. Yi Feng pondered for a moment and said, I plan to persuade them to build a home. Persuade them. The woman raised her eyebrows slightly as if she wanted to say something, but she swallowed the words back. This child has a lot of ideas, but her brain is a little bit slow. Can those vicious rebels be persuaded? If they can be persuaded, why would they be rebels? Of course, what the other party thinks has nothing to do with her. She is no longer the nosy girl she used to be. After collecting the money, just do the work as entrusted. That, Yi Feng paused, and then said, can I go with you? If you want to do this, it will be an additional protection mission. The woman looked calm, without sadness or joy, and said, the 2 million will not be returned. Okay, I don't expect the money to be returned. Yi Feng muttered softly. The woman said nothing more, and stretched out her hand to hold Yi Feng's waist. The paper wings behind her opened and took off. Wow, it really flew. Kushina sounded a little excited, and said, I didn't expect that there is such a technique in the ninja world. What is the origin of this female ninja? Where did you find such a talent? Hey, doesn't the madam know her? Yi Feng asked in confusion. Should I know? She is also Jiraiya's disciple, recruited in the Hidden Rain village. But I didn't expect that she would be the one to take our mission this time. I thought it would be someone else in the Akatsuki organization. The disciple of that old pervert Jiraiya. Oh, yes, I remember. Not long after Minato became Hokage, he mentioned this when he came to my house for dinner. But didn't they say they were dead? One died, and there are still 2 alive. Then they are quite pitiful. Poor, Yi Feng was stunned for a moment, and said sarcastically, indeed. On the one hand, you have to accumulate wealth, and on the other hand, you have to collect 9-tailed beasts. It's so pitiful. What? Kushina in the Soul Pearl opened her eyes wide, and said in disbelief, collect 9-tailed beasts. At this point, Yi Feng said very straightforwardly, by the way, the guy suspected by your husband to be Uchiha Madara is also in their organization. How could this be? Kushina was struck by lightning. Don't panic. Yi Feng remained calm and said calmly, the current situation is that we are in the dark and they are in the light. Besides, the infatuated man who is suspected to be Uchiha Madara also has conflicts with Jiraiya's 2 disciples. The infatuated man who is suspected to be Uchiha Madara. Kushina tasted something different from this title. It's hard to hide the tears of the divine power, madam. Yi Feng sighed. Yi Fengjun, do you want to speak properly? Kushina said in a threatening tone. It's Obito. That Uchiha Madara is actually Obito. Stupefied, Kushina in the Soul Pearl was stunned on the spot. Cardo Building. Nearly 100 wandering ninjas and samurai patrolled the various floors of the building, holding various weapons and looking fierce. In the lobby of Cardo's office, several senior ninjas sat lazily on benches and sofas, looking at the 2 people, one tall and one short, in the corner with a playful look. The tall one had a bandage wrapped around his upper body, and only a pair of cold eyes were exposed on his face. The short boy had a delicate face and wore a gray-brown cloth robe. These 2 people were Zabuza Momochi, the Kurigakure demon, and Bai, who was responsible for intercepting the boatmen and fishermen before. At this moment, Zabuza was obviously very angry about Bai's actions. Squinting his eyes, he said in a hoarse voice, so, you came back in such a disgrace. The order I gave you was to kill the civilians and make them collapse, not to let you, a waste, persuade them with good words. I'm sorry, Lord Zabuza. Bai lowered his head, his face full of apology. Ninjas are just tools, they don't need any feelings. Zabuza said coldly, if I don't feel that your tool is handy, I will break you with my own hands. Bai didn't refute, but just lowered his head in silence. How stupid, Zabuza. A frivolous voice suddenly sounded, and said lazily, your tool is obviously useless, but you still don't plan to throw it away. Looking at it, the person who spoke had short black hair that reached his ears. His eyebrows were very thick, and he carried two split blades like lightning on his back. You don't need to take care of my business, Raiga. Zabuza said coldly. Although they were all ninjas from the same village at the beginning, their relationship was not good. Since the fourth Hokage came to power, the Hidden Mist Village has implemented the Blood Mist Village policy soon. From the beginning of the ninja school students, they fought against each other, and even the childhood friends who grew up together were not trustworthy, not to mention that Zabuza and Raiga had only met a few times. You can't say that, we are a team now. Heichulei grinned and said, what if your tools hold us back when we fight? Otherwise, let me help you clean up the mess. Leia, are you provoking me? Zabuza exuded murderous aura and said indifferently. Oh, did you see through it? Heichulei was not at all weak, and said tit for tat, I have wanted to see the strength of you, the mist-hidden demon, a long time ago. Dignified, the atmosphere in the whole hall suddenly became solemn. Just when the two men were about to fight, there was a loud bang, and the wooden door suddenly broke into pieces. Swish, swish, swish. One by one, white paper spears pierced in like raindrops. Leia, who was close to the door, was unable to dodge and was directly pierced through the waist and abdomen and nailed to the wall behind him. The other senior ninjas were far away from the gate and reacted quickly, so they dodged the paper spears in a hurry. Snap, snap, rhythmic footsteps sounded, and a woman wearing a black robe with red clouds and a small white flower on her head came into everyone's sight. Who are you? Zabuza held a long sword and narrowed his eyes. Akatsuki, Akatsuki Organization. Maruyama, the former star of the Rock Ninja, looked horrified and said in disbelief, why are people from Akatsuki Organization here? Akatsuki Organization. The man from the Bear Country, Zazangwa, looked puzzled. In the early years, the Rock Village hired them to participate in the war against the Hidden Cloud Village. Maruyama swallowed his saliva and said intermittently, the Akatsuki Organization only sent out 2 people at that time, and they wiped out the vanguard troops led by 10 senior ninjas from the Hidden Cloud Village. What? Zhanghua's forehead was also sweating at this time, and he stared and said, only 2 people wiped out the vanguard troops of the Hidden Cloud Village. Are you kidding? So far, I give up this employment commission. Maruyama shouted, turned around and was about to jump out of the window to escape. But as soon as he stood up, a paper spear pierced from behind and nailed him to the wall with a bang. Zabuza-sama, looking at this terrifying scene, Bai's body trembled. Stop her. Zabuza gave the order directly without any hesitation. His body flew back and raised one hand. Mist hidden technique. The whole hall was suddenly filled with mist. Xiaonan looked at the rising smoke, her expression still without sadness or joy. Secret technique. 1,000 killings water flying. The crystal clear ice mirror stood up in front of Xiaonan, and the handsome boy thrust at her with the 1,000 books in his hand. Click. Xiaonan casually held his wrist with one hand and said lightly, you made such a non-killing attack against the enemy, do you think you are not dying fast enough? Please. Bai opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but was knocked unconscious by a knife from Xiaonan. Swish. A cold light flashed behind him, and a long knife silently pierced into Xiaonan's lower back. Success. The attacker Zhangwa was excited, but his expression froze the next moment. In his sight, the woman's body suddenly split into 2 halves, turning into pieces of paper and disappearing on the spot. What? Zhangwa was in disbelief. What the hell is this technique? Puff. No one answered for him, and a paper spear fell from the sky and pierced him to the ground. It's really surprising. Zabuza's voice sounded from all directions, saying, I didn't expect that there would be a woman in the ninja world who is more terrifying than that crazy woman Zhao Meimei. Whoosh. Xiaonan swung the paper spear in his hand and stabbed to the right. Bang. The paper spear pierced through the pillar, but it was obvious that no one was stabbed. The mist hiding technique is indeed a bit tricky for ninjas with weak perception. Even if Konan's strength is much higher than Zabuza, it is difficult to catch him unless the mist disappears. Suddenly, Konan felt a hand reaching out from the mist to grab her shoulder. She subconsciously attacked with her backhand, and the paper spear in her hand obviously pierced the entity, but at this time a ball of purple smoke exploded under her feet. Konan stepped back and covered her mouth and nose, but it was too late. The purple smoke obviously contained a strong poison, which made her feel a little weak in an instant. He, it seems that my gains from this trip to the Star Ninja Village are still useful. This is the voice of Kuroki Raiga, who is still able to move at this time. You'd better not move, it will make you die faster. The mist dissipated at this moment, revealing the figures of Kuroki Raiga and Zabuza. The two people also looked very embarrassed. Kuroki Raiga's waist and abdomen were previously pierced by the paper spear, and now there is still a huge hole. Zabuza's entire right arm is almost useless. He just cooperated with Kuroki Raiga to make a feint attack, but was hit by Konan's counterattack. But it seems that we are the ones who laugh last. Kuroki Raiga grinned, not feeling that he was mean by using poison. For these rebellious ninjas who live on the edge of a knife, winning is the greatest honor. Konan was already bleeding from the corner of her mouth and kneeling on one knee, but she just frowned. She didn't beg for mercy or say anything harsh. She secretly mobilized and gathered the chakra in her body, preparing for a desperate fight. Hello, I shouldn't have missed the banquet, right? A slightly childish voice suddenly sounded, attracting everyone's attention. Yifeng opened his dead fish eyes and walked slowly into the hall with his short legs. Where did this kid come from? Kurochu Leia frowned as he looked at the boy in front of him, who was not even as tall as his waist. He turned his gaze to Zabuza and said in a low voice, "Is this also a tool you trained?" Shut up. Zabuza looked dissatisfied and said coldly, "I don't have so much free time to open a kindergarten." Wow, it seems to be an enemy. Kurochu Leia said sinisterly. As long as he is determined to be an enemy, he doesn't care about the other party's age or gender, just kill him. What are you doing here? Xiaonan stared at Yifeng and frowned. Didn't I remind you not to get close to here? To save you. Yifeng's young body stood beside her. No need, leave now. Xiaonan said in a cold tone. She was not worried about Yifeng's safety out of kindness, but just a matter of principle. Yifeng was her employer, and she should ensure the safety of her employer after accepting the commission. She can die, but the golden signboard of Akatsuki cannot be destroyed. Big sister. Yifeng sighed helplessly and said, "You are now flipping like a sunfish, and you are still stubborn. Your mouth is the hardest part of your body, right? This is not just a description, this girl's body is really soft." He felt it when she was holding him and flying in front of him, soft like a sponge. You. Xiaonan was a little broken by the ridicule, and spit out blood twice in anger. Don't get excited, your poison is quite powerful. Yifeng looked at the blood spit out by the other party and turned black, and quickly squatted down to cut his wrist to bleed. Now all his body fluids have turned into holy water of life, with super healing ability, but the fluids secreted from other places are obviously not suitable, so it is naturally best to let Xiaonan drink blood. Something is wrong. Kushina's voice sounded abruptly. Why? There are still enemies hiding in the dark nearby. Yifeng half crouched. His perception was always alert to the two mist rebel ninjas opposite him, preventing them from attacking by surprise. No, it seems that you haven't had any curse attack yet. Kushina said in confusion. The curse is attacking, can't you think of something good? Yifeng's mouth twitched. Are you mean to me? No, I'm just complaining. Alas, after all, I'm just a poor woman killed by my disciples, not as good as your Xiaonan sister. Kushina pretended to wipe tears in the soul-enriching bead. Jealous, huh? Yifeng was speechless. But it's really strange. Kushina raised her eyebrows and said in a puzzled tone, your curse will pop up every time you meet a beautiful big sister, and there is no reason for you to let Xiaonan's sister go. Silence. The atmosphere fell into a strange silence at this moment. After a long while without hearing a response, Kushina asked curiously, why don't you talk? Madam, you were born in the year of the crow, right? Yifeng's lips trembled slightly, and his expression was a little broken. In front of him, a familiar golden interface unfolded. Choose. 1. Kiss stealing assassin. While Xiaonan is unable to move now, go up and take her first kiss. 2. This is the taste of love. Use the method of replenishing magic to help He Chule heal his injuries. I believe you will also receive love's gratitude. 3. Take her life while she is sick. Backstab Xiaonan on the spot. let her experience what the rivers and lakes are like before she dies. This first option is already ridiculous enough. The second and third options are even more naive. Can't the dog system be a human being? Is the curse coming? Kushina was stunned, and said in surprise, is it really coming? I really borrowed your good words, madam. Yifeng's face turned a little green, and he took a deep breath. Looking at Xiaonan beside him, Yifeng whispered, I'm here to save you, don't get me wrong. Without waiting for Xiaonan to react, Yifeng attacked directly. Pop, a light sound. Their cheeks were completely touching, and time seemed to stand still at this moment. Xiaonan's dark golden pupils gradually expanded, and her expression showed disbelief. Was kissed. Was she kissed by a half-grown child? He said he was saving her, but he saved her like this. Xiaonan came to her senses and subconsciously prepared to push the boy away, but at this moment, she suddenly felt a wonderful sense of comfort spreading from her mouth to her whole body. The vitality in her body that was destroyed by the toxins was radiant again. Not only that, she also felt that every cell of her body seemed to be immersed in the warm ocean current. Her body began to tremble with pleasure, and her brain instinctively craved more without thinking too much. What are these two people doing? Seeing this scene, Kuroko Raiga and Zabuza were stunned. No, buddy, so this is the relationship between you two. That woman is so shameless, you can be a mother at your age, right? And even if it is such a relationship, shouldn't you two pay attention to the occasion? Now it is a life and death duel between ninjas, hey. Humph, you are so ignorant of life and death. Unlike Zabuza who was still in a daze, Kurochi Raiga reacted quickly. Then you two will be a desperate couple here. Took out another bottle of poison from his arms and threw it directly at Yifeng and Xiaonan. Snap. Yifeng didn't even look back, and casually grabbed the poison bottle in his hand. He gently pushed Xiaonan, who was still immersed in pleasure, away and stood up. The skin that was tightly pressed together separated, and Xiaonan realized what he had just done. His head was lowered, and his cheeks were covered with blush. Congratulations on obtaining the memory transmission technique. Memory transmission. Yifeng was stunned, with a surprised expression. This is a good thing. It can pass the memory in his mind to the person he wants to pass it on. It's worth his perversion. Wait, has he become accustomed to perversion now? Please don't. Gnashing his teeth in his heart, Yifeng stared at the poison bottle in front of him calmly, and said calmly, is this your secret weapon? I wonder what the ingredients are. Want to know? He Chu Lei Ya's face had turned pale due to excessive blood loss, but he still sneered and said, you can try it yourself, I don't mind. Good suggestion, you are a good person. Yifeng did not hesitate, and directly unscrewed the bottle cap and took a deep breath. The purple smoke went straight into his nasal cavity and spit out from his mouth. Question mark. This epic performance made everyone present stunned, and they looked at Yifeng as if they were looking at a monster. I suddenly realized that I'm not a pharmacist and can't analyze it at all. Yifeng threw the empty bottle in his hand aside and shrugged, but the smell is not so pungent, it's quite fragrant. How is it possible that you are fine? He Chu Lei Ya looked at the boy in front of him who was still flushed, and he was about to doubt his life. But unfortunately you will be in trouble soon. Yifeng took a stance and whispered, Mr. He Chu Lei Ya, do you still remember the 8 gates of Dunjia? What? He Chu Lei Ya's eyes widened and his body began to tremble unconsciously. You guy, could it be? Swish. The boy in front of him rushed in front of him like a stream of light, and He Chu Lei Ya instinctively raised his thunder knife to block it in front of his chest. Crack. Yifeng kicked him on the inside of his thigh without hesitation, and the powerful force directly broke He Chu Lei Ya's bones. He collapsed to the ground and angrily said, you are not using the 8 gates at all. Indeed, but I didn't say I could do it. Yifeng blinked at him and turned his gaze to Zabuza, who had lost one arm. Friend, do you still want to resist? Cold sweat oozed from Zabuza's forehead. He finally understood that the kid in front of him was not a simple character. Even if there was suspicion of fraud and sneak attack, he could easily get rid of Lei Ya, which was not something he could contend with in his current state of low health. What's more, the black-robed woman, who should have died of poison at this time, blocked his retreat on the right, and there was no sign of poisoning at all. Not only was she not poisoned, but her skin seemed to have become whiter and more delicate. It was outrageous. At this point, he could only use that trick. Zabuza frowned and made a decision in his heart. In Kato's office, the atmosphere in the hall fell into a strange stalemate. Kurochi Raiga's right leg was kicked and broken, and Yifeng added another punch to make him fall into a baby-like sleep. Among the remaining senior ninjas, only Zabuza was still looking for the opportunity to complete his last move. Yifeng and Xiaonan blocked his retreat on the left and right, waiting for his performance. That's right, now it's just a play. Yifeng is looking forward to what tricks Zabuza can do under this situation. As for playing too much, that kind of thing is impossible. Zabuza is not Naruto, can he still shout, friendship, and bond, to explode the nine tails? Laugh to death. If this can be played too much, let his close friends and relatives perform handstand diarrhea on the spot. Yifeng's expression was very playful, and Xiaonan opposite him was not in a hurry at this time. To be honest, this commission task still made her, the Rain Village Angel, feel very stiff. It should have been a simple matter to get rid of these useless rebels, but she almost got into trouble. She really didn't expect the other party to poison her, and this was her own fault. In the end, she was saved by her client, and the way he saved her made Xiaonan's cheeks feel hot until now. There was no way to blame the other party, it was a fact that she was saved. And she herself didn't feel any disgust, and even had a faint aftertaste. It must be because the other party was just a child, and it shouldn't count with a child, right? Xiaonan muttered to herself, her eyes were a little erratic. Hey, what does your sister Xiaonan's mouth feel like? Kushina's voice suddenly resounded in Yifeng's mind, with an inexplicable tone. It's quite moist. No, what does it feel like? Yifeng began to play dumb, his eyes wandering. No feeling, I just wanted to save people. That's all. Then you were really noble. Kushina sneered. Otherwise, my nickname in Konoha was Sincere Young Master. Yifeng used his usual technique of changing the subject, but at this moment his wandering eyes met Xiaonan's erratic gaze. They were both stunned at the same time, and the next moment they looked away at the same time with a guilty conscience. Ahem. Yifeng coughed dryly to ease his embarrassment and said, let's fight now. We can talk about other issues later. Fight. Kushina looked playful and said meaningfully, I think you two are here for a blind date. PFF, blind date. Yifeng almost spit out a mouthful of salt soda from his mouth, and said with a twitch at the corner of his mouth, old mother, stop making trouble. I'm still a child. It's so funny. You admit that you are a child now. Kushina snorted coldly and said, don't call me old mother in the future. Ah, call me sister. But, Naruto and we are friends. What's the problem? No, Yifeng really couldn't figure it out. Why did he suddenly change his name? But he didn't think about this question for long. Zabuza on the opposite side had already started to act. He bit the long sword in his hand with his mouth and suddenly stepped back. He grabbed the bald middle-aged man hiding under the desk with one hand and put the blade against his chin. Let me go, or he will die. Help, help. The bald middle-aged man struggled hard, but he was just an ordinary man. Under the powerful force of the Jonin level, his struggle was like an ant trying to shake a tree. Xiaonan was shocked by his actions and narrowed his eyes. I didn't expect that he would choose to take hostages at this time. This Zabuza is really something. Looking at the boy, Xiaonan waited for his reaction. She felt that this middle-aged man should be very important, otherwise Zabuza would not use him as the final trump card. But the boy showed doubts on his face at this time, tilting his head and said, excuse me, who is this uncle? Don't know him. Xiaonan was stunned, with a slightly surprised look on his face. Asshole, don't pretend to be stupid. Zabuza was also a little broken by him, and gritted his teeth and said, I know you are the ninjas hired by the civilians, and come to this guy to ask for wages. I'm wrong, I'm actually the employer. Yifeng muttered in a low voice. I never thought that a bunch of unarmed trash could hire people like you. I admit defeat this time. Zabuza took a breath and said coldly, let me go, I will return Gato to you. What if I say no? Yifeng's dead fish eyes disappeared at this time, and his eyes were deep. Then your civilian employers will not get a penny. Zabuza's eyes were cold and his voice was low. For ninjas like you, you should not want your mission to fail, right? So in your eyes, it is Gato who feeds those civilians. Yifeng sneered and said, "Hey, this is fame, the long-awaited ninja master. Is this what ninjas are like?" Quote. "What do you mean?" Zabuza narrowed his eyes, feeling very unhappy about being mocked. So much so that the strength in his hands began to increase, and blood oozed from Cardo's neck. "It hurts. Let me go, I can give you a lot of money." Cardo, who felt the pain, cried out in pain, completely unlike the arrogant attitude he had when facing the common people of Wave Country. Literally, Yifeng directly regarded Cardo's plea as fart, and said to Zabuza, "In my understanding, it has always been the workers who support the bosses, and the guy in your hand is just a beast that sucks blood from the workers. Please go ahead and kill him, and I will even applaud you." Quote. Do you think I dare not?" Zabuza's heart trembled, and cold sweat oozed from his forehead. Konan was also thoughtful at this time. Workers support their bosses. She had never thought about this issue before, and it sounded quite novel at first. "Of course you dare." Yifeng smiled gently and said softly, "Zabuza, the Kusagakure demon, how many souls have died under your sword since you became a ninja? You dare to assassinate the Mizuki of the Kusagakure village, let alone this blood-sucking beast in front of you. Come on, let us witness the birth of a new hero of the Land of Waves." "You guy." Zabuza's wrist was tight, and he felt like he was being roasted on the fire. He did assassinate the Mizuki, but he was still a young man at that time. He dared to go anywhere with his passion, but now it's different. He wants to live now, better than anyone else. It seems you need a little help. Yifeng smiled and suddenly rushed forward. "What?" Zabuza grabbed Cardo and instinctively retreated, but found that the boy's palm was against the back of his knife. Without hesitation, he pushed forward. Puff! The blade cut Cardo's throat, and blood sprayed all over Zabuza's head and face. "Oh, now Zabuza has no hostages." Yifeng jumped up and grabbed his throat, pressing his body to the ground. Zabuza, who was in a complete disadvantage, was also aroused to be fierce, and 1,000 blades spit out of his mouth. Yifeng blocked it with one hand, and the 1,000 blades pierced into his palm. However, the boy did not care at all, and directly pulled the 1,000 blades out of his palm with his teeth. In Zabuza's stunned eyes, the other party's palm, which had been pierced with a hole, healed instantly. What kind of monster are you?" Zabuza had never seen such an outrageous thing in his life, and said with an unbelievable expression. "Monster." Yifeng sneered and said lightly, "Compared to you, a disgusting thing that uses people as tools, I feel that I am at least more like a human being than you." Zabuza was speechless, and there was only shock in his eyes. "Bite your teeth, this may hurt a little." Yifeng raised his slightly immature fist and punched Zabuza on the forehead. Bang! A muffled sound. Zabuza's head tilted and he was unconscious in an instant. "Thank you this time." Climbing up from Zabuza, Yifeng looked at Xiaonan and said, Miss Xiao Zibai. "My name is Xiaonan." Xiaonan officially told Yifeng her name at this time. "Sister Nan, wait for me to clean up here, I want to talk to you alone about something." Yifeng exhaled a breath of turbid air and said softly, "Can I?" "Yes." Xiaonan paused and nodded calmly. In fact, her heart was not as calm as it seemed. She thought of several possibilities, even like the love novels she had read before. This boy wanted to confess to her. "What should I do? I'm afraid I can't agree to this. He's just a child." Cardo's office. The messy environment has been cleaned up, and Zabuza, Orochimaru and others who were knocked unconscious have also been locked up in the underground prison. The bespectacled pharmacist Nono sat on Cardo's office chair and carefully looked through the documents in his hand. After a while, he slowly raised his head and looked at Yifeng beside him and said, "All the deeds and company shares are complete and can be transferred directly." "Well, then transfer them to the teacher's name." Yifeng nodded. These things were all found by him in Cardo's vault. In addition to the documents, there were 5 billion taels of cash and a large amount of gold, silver and jewelry. That's right, not 100 million, not 1 billion, but 5 billion taels. It's hard to imagine that the boss of a company in a remote country has accumulated such a huge wealth. In the underground gold exchange, the head of the Konoha Hokage is only 20 million, 5 billion is enough to buy 250 lives of Sarutobi Hiruzen. Transfer to my name. Nono was surprised and quickly refused. "No, this is not appropriate." "Teacher, Please listen to me first. Yifeng knocked on the table lightly and smiled. Although these deeds and shares belong to your name, they can be distributed to all employees of the company when dividends are actually distributed. You have the jurisdiction of the company temporarily. When education is popularized in the future, the shares will be distributed to all employees. Why is it so troublesome? Nono calmed down and asked in a low voice, can't it be distributed directly to employees? They are not ready yet. Yifeng shook his head and said, without you to supervise and govern now, it will cause chaos. The public is not aware enough, and it is likely to become a disaster if they rashly take the route of collective ownership. This is why Yifeng said that education should be popularized. Only correct ideological education can improve awareness. In this case, let me try. Nono breathed a sigh of relief. In addition, I suggest that this ocean-going company be transformed. Yifeng pondered for a moment and said lightly, transportation is not suitable as a pillar industry, which is not conducive to the development of the country. People run around every day and have no time and energy to build their homes. Nono nodded in agreement and said, how to do it specifically? Merge, split. Yifeng took a pen and wrote and drew on paper. First, integrate all other companies of all sizes in the country of waves, give priority to the development of industry and high tech, and then use industry to feed back other industries. Okay, let's do it as you say. Nono nodded gently and said, where should we start first? In fact, she was completely confused by what she heard. After all, she was just a ninja in an intelligence agency before, so how could she understand the division of industrial chains? But at least she knew that it was right to listen to Yifeng. This child has been very capable since he was a child. Those eyes seemed to see through the essence of the world, and they could point out the core of almost any problem. Of course, we have to give the new company a resounding name first. Yifeng touched his smooth chin, and a light flashed in his dead fish eyes. How about calling it Umbrella? The moon was bright and the stars were sparse, and the waves were crashing against the shore. After walking out of the Cardo building, Yifeng stretched and came to the coast. Xiaonan, who was wearing a black robe with red clouds, followed him and looked at the boy in front of him with a strange look of amazement. When the other party and her teacher drafted the Wave Country Development Plan, they did not avoid her. Xiaonan saw the whole plan. That really shocked her. From industrialization, technological development to compulsory education. Although she didn't understand many of the technical terms, Xiaonan knew very well that if the plan mentioned by Yifeng was really completed, the future of Wave Country would definitely take off. It was surprising enough that a child who was only 10 years old had such insights and knowledge reserves. More importantly, everything this child did was not for himself. With his ability and means, Xiaonan fully believed that the other party could turn this island country into his own independent kingdom. But he didn't. He made all the plans, and the ultimate beneficiaries were the civilians of the Wave Country. This is what really shocked Xiaonan, and even difficult to understand. The night view of the seaside is really beautiful. Yifeng turned around and asked with a smile, Sister Nan, what do you think? Yeah, Xiaonan restrained her mood a little and nodded gently. It's really beautiful. The stars in the sky are like gems embellishing the curtain of the night sky, and a crescent moon is shining, and the vast ocean seems to be covered with a layer of silver yarn. Speaking of which, how long has it been since she last saw the night view like this? It's not just because it rains all year round in the Rain Village, but mainly because she no longer has the mood to enjoy the scenery. Since Yahiko's death, she and Nagato have been for running around for the 10 Tails fusion. It's said that it's for world peace, but Xiaonan actually has no idea. Even if the 10 Tails fusion succeeds, can it really bring peace? Xiaonan doesn't know, and I'm afraid even Nagato doesn't know. He just embarked on this path for that former ideal. If Yahiko were still alive, would he be willing to see himself and Nagato now? The answer to this question is probably no. But do they have any other options besides this path? Xiaonan thought there was no option before, but now. He turned his eyes and looked at the boy not far away. If it was him, he should be able to help him solve the mystery in front of him, right? But how should he say it? If he told him the truth, would it scare him? After all, the idea of 10 Tails fusion, forcing the entire ninja world to end war would be considered crazy by normal people. Sister Nan, Yifeng spoke abruptly, interrupting Xiaonan's thoughts. Well, what's the matter? Xiaonan whispered. You look like you're worried. Yifeng said. Xiaonan didn't say anything and fell into silence. She hadn't figured out how to explain it yet. If she really scared the other party, she would feel guilty. Sister Nan, remember I said I wanted to talk to you. Yifeng looked straight into her eyes and said solemnly, I think now is a good opportunity. Is it coming? Xiaonan swallowed secretly and felt her heart beating very fast. On the surface, she pretended to be calm and nodded gently. Well, go ahead. Well, before that, Yifeng scratched his head and smiled, can you please give me your hand first? Give him your hand. Xiaonan took a deep breath. Could he be proposing directly? Isn't this a bit too fast? Sure enough, she had to refuse. Thinking so in her heart, her hand was handed out uncontrollably. At this moment, Xiaonan felt that she was hopeless. The boy grabbed her hand as expected, but at this time he whispered, relax next, don't resist. What? Before Xiaonan could react, she felt a large amount of information flow in her mind. That's right, Yifeng is using memory transmission technique on Xiaonan now. He can selectively transfer his own memories to the other party, which is a magical skill. Stunned, after receiving the information, Xiaonan's eyes widened, and his face was full of disbelief and he said, magical girl Uchiha Madara. Hey, get up. Yifeng heard someone calling him in a daze. He opened his sleepy eyes and a translucent red head popped out from the foot of his bed and appeared in front of his eyes. Yifeng exclaimed and woke up instantly. Ha 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 ha, your expression is so funny. Kushina smiled brightly after pushing away the hair covering her face. Yifeng twitched his lips and said with a frown, people who scare others will scare them to death, sister. You were right, but I am not a human. Kushina winked at him. Yifeng really couldn't refute this. He got up with a helpless expression and put on his coat. Aren't you afraid of being seen? What does it matter? You're the only one left in this room. Kushina buried her body under the bed, still only showing her head, and said, your teacher Nono, Reena, and even Karin woke up earlier than you. Don't you think you should reflect on it? Forget it, there's no such thing as reflection for salted fish. Yifeng walked into the bathroom and started to wash up. Your sister Nan has left, and she ran over to look at you before she left. Kushina reminded. Ah, why didn't you call me then? Yifeng asked in confusion, biting his toothbrush in his mouth. I think she stared at your bed for a long time, probably just to appreciate your sleeping posture. Kushina raised her eyebrows, and her tone was quite playful. If I wake you up, wouldn't it ruin her good things? What weird things are you talking about again? Yifeng's voice came from the bathroom. Tisk, young people are still too young. Kushina remembered the look that Xiaonan had when she looked at Yifeng's sleeping face, and she couldn't help smacking her lips. Your sister Nan is also quite something, doesn't she care about the age difference at all? Ah, Yifeng wiped his face with a towel and didn't hear clearly. What's the matter with the magical girl Uchiha Madara? You haven't told me yet. Kushina skipped the topic directly, and flew up and drilled into Yifeng's body. The process of drilling in would inevitably expose her body, but at this time, both she and Yifeng had been desensitized, and the two would no longer blush at every turn like before. I advise you not to ask too much, it will open the door to taboos. Yifeng sighed. That thing was a secondary creation that he had accidentally seen, and he was deeply impressed. It can be called mental pollution. It's so funny, I'm afraid of this. Kushina sneered confidently and said, come on, show me what's going on. As far as she is concerned, her relationship with Yifeng is already taboo enough. No matter how taboo it is, can it be more taboo than them in reality? Kushina doesn't believe it. Moreover, she has already developed a strong curiosity in her heart. Magical girl Uchiha Madara, this name sounds like it makes people want to explore it. Uchiha Madara is obviously a man, what the hell is a magical girl? Let's make it clear in advance, don't blame me if you feel uncomfortable. Yifeng reminded. Hurry up, don't waste time. Kushina urged anxiously. She now knows that Yifeng has the ability to transmit memories, but unfortunately she hasn't been able to experience it yet, and Xiaonan got there first. Okay, be mentally prepared. The premise of memory transmission is that the other party needs to trust oneself, relax the mind, and then instill memories through physical contact. Kushina is a soul, living in the soul-enriching beat in Yifang's body in a symbiotic way. So there is no need to make any preconditions, it can be triggered immediately. The information flow poured into Kushina's sea of consciousness, and the next moment she was stunned as if struck by lightning. After a long while, her body began to tremble slightly, and her eyes widened and she said, "What the hell is this?" The explosive battle, the imprisoned magical girl Uchiha Madara and the grinning evil Dr. Senju Tobarama. And the huge shadow waving and attacking, Senju Hashirama, who is called the strongest weirdo. Kushina felt that her eyes were going blind, and she wished she could lose her memory on the spot. I said it was the forbidden door. Yifang spread his hands and walked out of the door. Who can understand your taboo? Kushina's mouth twitched wildly in the soul-enriching pearl, and she said angrily, "What do you see every day?" Jiraiya, the old pervert, will be paralyzed when he sees you. You are young and ignorant. Yifang defended himself. No, I can't be the only one blind. Kushina suddenly said. Publicize it and benefit the entire ninja world. Hiss, madam, you are so vicious. Yifang opened his mouth and took a breath. At this moment, in the dark underground prison, Zabuza lying on the thatched straw, he woke up and shook his head. Master Zabuza, you finally woke up. A familiar voice sounded beside him. Shiro. Zabuza looked in the direction of the voice and saw a handsome young man with disheveled hair. Are we still alive? He had remembered everything that had happened before, but was just curious why he was still alive. If you want to die, I can help you, Zabuza. A sinister voice sounded in the corner. At this time, Zabuza realized that it was not just him and Shiro, but Raiga, Zangwa and Maruyama who were still alive. The one who just spoke was Kuroki Raiga. Once a ninja from the same village, now a cellmate. Faced with such a provocation, Zabuza certainly could not show weakness. He sneered and said, "You try it. You two should stop arguing. It's better to save some energy." Maruyama interrupted and whispered, "We are all prisoners now, so we are in the same boat." Humph. Kurochu Raiga snorted coldly, but did not refute. What's going on? Why can't I sense chakra? Zabuza checked his own condition and frowned. You just found out, how stupid. Kurochu Raiga sneered and said, "Since you plan to capture us, how can you not suppress us?" I studied it before. This is a very clever sealing spell. Maruyama sighed and said, "Ordinary methods of removing the spell have no effect at all." What are they going to do? Zabuza asked in confusion. Nothing, just some things that need your help. The outer door of the prison opened, and a boy with black hair and white robes appeared in front of everyone. It's you. Seeing the boy in front of him again, Zabuza's expression flashed with panic. This guy is too weird. Interesting, you want me to help you? Kurochi Raiga looked like a scoundrel, sneering, "Just you?" "Yes, just me." Yifang was not angry, and looked at him with a smile on his face. "I wonder what you need us to do." Maruyama was quite sensible. "There is a barren mountain in the south of Wave Country, and I need you to reclaim it within half a month." Yifang still kept smiling and looked around. "No problem, right? Reclaim the barren mountain." Maruyama couldn't hold it back, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Even he who knew the situation was like this, let alone Zabuza and Kurochi Raiga. "You fool, what do you think I am? I'm not a farmer. It seems that you all are very resistant." Yifeng smiled and said, "But unfortunately, this is mandatory. If you don't go, the consequences may be serious. Kill me if you dare." He Chu-lei narrowed his eyes. "Unfortunately, I don't like fighting and killing." Yifeng looked at him and stretched out his right hand. A ray of silver light wrapped around his fingertips and gently touched He Chu-lei's chest. "I am good at convincing people with virtue. Conscience enlargement technique." Bang! In an instant, He Chu-lei's chest began to expand wildly like a balloon that was blown up. Swish! The outer coat on the front of his chest was directly torn, revealing a large piece of white. Gulp! Everyone present was stunned when they saw this scene, and they felt a chill on their backs. Convincing people with virtue. This is called convincing people with virtue. This is the devil. At this moment, the devil boy tilted his head and said with a smile, "How about it, everyone, are you convinced now?" The sun was warm and the sky was blue. Yi Feng was walking on the road back to Konoha, and the dense forests on both sides could hear the sound of wind and birds singing. You said I was vicious before, but you are the real vicious one, right? Kushina's voice sounded, and she said in a strange tone, you have made Kurochi Raiga autistic. He is just too conservative now. Yi Feng's mouth curled up and smiled. After getting used to it, you may find that it feels good. After getting used to it. Kushina's mouth twitched, and she said speechlessly, that kind of thing, how can you get used to it? Thinking of a big man with 2 balls bigger than her, she felt unbearable to look at. Don't be so sure, Yi Feng chuckled and said. People's personalities and preferences will change over time. Maybe he will gradually fall in love with this feeling. If it were you, would you? Kushina whispered. I can't, Yi Feng answered without hesitation, saying, I'd rather die than become like that. Ha 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 ha, you guy. Kushina was amused by the boy's honesty, rolling her eyes and said, you can't do it yourself, so why do you assume that others can? People have all kinds of hobbies, it's really hard to say. Oh, think about the magical girl Uchiha Madara, would a normal person like that kind of thing? But this thing really has a market. Shut up, don't mention that anymore. Kushina in the Soul Pearl was like wearing a painful mask, her beautiful face twisted. Nightmare. This thing is simply her nightmare. Kushina regretted it now. Why did she have such a strong curiosity before? So, do you still need to promote it to the entire ninja world? Yi Feng asked with a smile. Yes, Kushina said loudly without hesitation. That's why we need to publicize it. I'm going to make the ninja world feel the pain. Okay, you are worthy of it. As the two talked, the gate of Konoha was already in sight. He took out the Hokage's warrant, and the Konoha ninja guarding the gate was stunned for a moment and decisively let him go. Back to the familiar street again, Yi Feng took a breath with emotion and said, I feel like I'm in another world after being away for a few days. Your identity is different now. Kushina smiled sweetly and said in a teasing tone, when you went out, you were just a ninja school student, and when you came back, you were already the leader of the Wave Country. That's right, Yi Feng is now the real leader of the Wave Country. Originally, Yi Feng was going to help Nanoyu to this position, but his teacher decisively stabbed him in the back during the inauguration ceremony. In front of all the people of Wave Country, he announced Yi Feng's identity as the new leader. Kushina still remembers the dark expression on the kid's face at that time, which was really hilarious. Haha, the script of the king's return, right? Yi Feng laughed awkwardly. He didn't want the position of leader at all. In his opinion, it was just a forced job. He knew his own weight very well, and he was embarrassed to be a village chief. But the people of Wave Country couldn't resist the kindness. Knowing that he was the hero who destroyed the Kaido Ocean Company, they insisted on recommending him as the new leader. Not only that, some craftsmen were eager to build a statue for him in the center of the square. Of course, Yi Feng stopped this behavior and suggested that even if it was to be built, it should be a statue of Zabuza. Strictly speaking, Kaido really died at the hands of this person. And replacing the hero of Wave Country with Zabuza would also make it easier for him to continue to fish in Konoha. Yi Feng did not intend to defect directly, as that would expose the Wave Country and Mr. Nono, who had just achieved a phased victory, to the eyes of the Konoha high-level officials. Steady and steady, step by step is the way to go. What should we say next? Kushina asked. First, go to our Lord Danzo and hand in a letter of surrender. Yi Feng's mouth curled up, and the smile on his face looked very malicious. At the same time, the Akatsuki organization base. Moon Eye Project. Sitting in a wheelchair, the skinny Nagato opened his eyes wide and looked moved. Yeah, standing in front of him, Konan looked calm and said in a calm tone, the guy who calls himself Uchiha Madara, his ultimate goal is to use the Samsara Sharingan to activate the infinite moon redding and drag the whole world into the illusion. Is that so? Nagato lowered his eyelids and fell into deep thought. You are not really moved by this virtual cyber piece. Konan raised his eyebrows, as if he saw through his friend's thoughts. That's just an escape, Nagato. What does cyber peace mean? You can think of it as brain illusion in the sea. Nagato was stunned and sighed. You are right. Moreover, this fake Uchiha Madara and his superior, the real Uchiha Madara, were all deceived by him. Konan spoke again. Ah, Nagato raised his head with a surprised expression. The real purpose of the mastermind behind the scenes is to use the infinite moon reading to unlock his mother, and these two people eventually became Gotham role models. Konan said lightly. Gotham role model. Well, it means the clown. Nagato was silent for a moment, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly and said, "Where did you learn the trendy words? And who told you these incredible information? I remember that you just went to the country of waves to do a simple commission task. What happened? The process is a bit tortuous. Simply put, I recognized a younger brother in the country of waves." Konan did not hide it and said it very straightforwardly. Question mark. Nagato took a breath and his eyes widened. Recognized a younger brother. Quote. He thought he knew this good friend very well, and that Yahiko should have been as heartbroken as he was after his death. But he never expected that he would give him such a big surprise. Recognize a younger brother? Are you kidding me? Yes. Konan nodded and said, although he is not very old, he is a very remarkable person. Konan, are you serious? Nagato said in a low voice. Except for Yahiko, he doesn't think there is anything remarkable in this world, including himself. Although he calls himself a god, the god is pain, not him, Nagato. Of course, I even think he is the future of the ninja world, although he doesn't think so himself. Konan said this with a firm look in his eyes. Nagato frowned, wondering if his friend in front of him was under an illusion. Otherwise, how could he give such an evaluation as the future of the ninja world? Yahiko in the past didn't even get this treatment. I know you won't believe it just by words. Konan took out a document from her bosom and handed it to Nagato, saying, "This is the gift he asked me to pass on to you." Gift. Nagato took the object with a confused look on his face. Well, this is one of the gifts. Konan nodded and said lightly, "Take a look first." Nagato turned the cover of the document and his expression was stunned for a moment. 5-year plan to transform the ninja world. Transform the ninja world. This is a very novel term. Nagato turned the second page with curiosity. Then, his mind was completely attracted. After reading the entire document carefully, it took a long time for him to gradually come back to his senses. How do you feel? Konan asked in a low voice. I can probably understand why you would use the future of the ninja world to evaluate it. Nagato breathed a sigh of relief and said with lingering feelings, he is a genius, a real genius. Quote. Many people, including him, know that the source of the ninja world war is material scarcity, but no one has ever proposed to liberate ninjas from the profession of ninja and let them engage in labor that can truly develop productivity. This is really a genius vision, and it is indeed a path to peace. If Yahiko were still alive, he would definitely be happy to meet such a person. He has already started doing this in the land of waves with the things above. Konan raised his head with a little pride and handed Nagato a small bottle of scarlet liquid. This is his second gift to you. What is this? Drink it and you will feel a whole new world. Quote. So, you saw with your own eyes that Zabuza, the hero of Wave Country, was defeated. Sarutobi Hiruzen tapped the table with one hand, and said in surprise, the man who did it was wearing a respirator, and his face looked very old. Yes, Lord Hokage, Yi Feng said respectfully. It's really strange. Sarutobi Hiruzen pinched his chin with one hand, looking thoughtful. Through Yi Feng's description, he quickly locked on who defeated Zabuza. With an old face and wearing a respirator, he defeated the Jonin level Zabuza with just a few moves. The only person in the whole ninja world who meets the requirements is probably the demigod, Hanzo of the Salamander. But this is incomprehensible. As the leader of the Hidden Rain village, he went to Wave Country to rob a transportation company. This old guy is bored at home, and wants to run a transportation business, right? And Momochi Zabuza is also outrageous. The rebel ninja from the Hidden Mist village, who was famous for assassinating the Mizuki, actually became a hero of the Land of Waves. If he hadn't received the secret report from the spy and the evidence from the young man in front of him, he would not have believed such a fantasy. The small Land of Waves has become so full of hidden talents. I reminded you to act quickly before, so that you won't be beaten to the punch by that Hanzo. Danzo, who was sitting on the left side of the desk with bandages on his head and face, snorted coldly. Hiruzen, you are still too weak. We are the peace-loving Konoha. Sarutobi Hiruzen signaled with his eyes that there are still Konoha seedlings here, so some words should be avoided. I will not easily interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. HMPH, hypocrisy. Danzo completely ignored his eyes and said lightly, if it weren't for the secret line I planted in the land of waves and the flexibility of this kid, our Konoha would have almost lost everything. No, what did you invest? Sarutobi Hiruzen looked strange, frowned and said, you just said almost. Take it out, let this old guy see it. Danzo looked at Yifeng. Yes, Danzo-sama. Yifeng took out a letter of authorization from his arms. Sarutobi Hiruzen was stunned, took the letter of authorization and looked at it, and said in astonishment, this is. Sorry, Hokage-sama. Yifeng looked apologetic and said respectfully, Ms. Weiyu and I borrowed the name of Konoha to ask for a long-term commission contract from the umbrella company of Wave Country without authorization. They are willing to apply for a protection commission from us at a price of 40 million taels per year. This lady codenamed Weiyu is the nail planted by Danzo in Wave Country, and also Konoha's spy stationed in Wave Country. Coincidentally, she is also a disciple cultivated by Nono since childhood, and the two have a very deep relationship. Since Nono removed the tongue trouble seal, for her, Ms. Weiyu has completely turned to their side. Danzo naturally didn't know about this, and he didn't even expect Nono to be alive. Seeing the astonishment of his old friend, he suddenly showed a happy smile on his face and said, you don't need to apologize at all. This is good for our Konoha. Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't say anything, and the whole person fell into silence. If you say it's good for Konoha, then it must be. This commission doesn't even require Konoha to send ninjas to station, it only needs to rescue in time when the umbrella company encounters a crisis. Seriously speaking, it's equivalent to lying down and collecting protection fees. For the annual revenue of 40 million taels, the self-assertion of the boy in front of him and the spy, Weiyu, can be completely ignored. But Sarutobi Hiruzen doesn't care about this, but the relationship between the boy in front of him and Danzo. It's outrageous, when did they become so familiar? There's one more thing I forgot to tell you, Hiruzen. Danzo raised his head proudly and said lightly, Xiaolin Yifeng will be my route from now on. What did you say? Sarutobi Hiruzen stared at Danzo, then turned his gaze to Yifeng who lowered his head and said nothing. His brows were deeply furrowed, and his face gradually turned dark. Danzo, he's just a student at the ninja school. Humph, you and I would have followed the second generation to the battlefield at his age. Danzo sneered and said, age has never been a problem, the key lies in talent. Obviously, this child is talented. He completed the first mission well enough. I disagree. Sarutobi Hiruzen said in a tough and firm tone. Yifeng must complete his studies first, this is the bottom line. In his opinion, Yifeng must have been coerced, otherwise he would never get close to someone like Danzo. This guy is such a fool. Konoha has been recuperating for so many years, and finally a good seedling has appeared. How can it enter the dark place like the root? As the Hokage, he will never allow it. Hiruzen, you. Danzo was about to lose his temper, but he seemed to have thought of something, and finally just snorted coldly, okay, then let's do as you say. After saying that, he shook his sleeves and stood up to leave. If Danzo forces you to do anything, come and tell me. Sarutobi Hiruzen felt that it was the time when he summoned Yifeng alone that made Danzo interested, and he couldn't help feeling guilty. It's okay, Hokage. Yifeng obviously predicted his thoughts and comforted him softly. Don't blame you, this is my own choice. Although he said so, Sarutobi Hiruzen still caught a flash of bitterness in his eyes. This made him more certain that the boy in front of him was definitely forced, and his dissatisfaction with Danzo became stronger. My old friend, you have crossed the line a bit. The sun sets in the west, and the setting sun is more beautiful than blood. Yifeng walked out of the Hokage's office and turned to the training ground on the south side of Konoha. Danzo emerged from the shadows and said calmly, what did the old guy tell you? Hokage-sama told me to stay away from you. Yifeng said calmly. HMPH, you are still so hypocritical. Danzo sneered and said, Xiaolin Yifeng, you are a smart man. And what we need in the route is smart people. I understand, Lord Danzo. Yifeng was full of respect. Danzo showed a satisfied expression on his face and said calmly, I plan to take you as a disciple, what do you think? This was not a whim, but he really wanted to take a disciple, in order to surpass his old friend Sarutobi Hiruzen. That guy has 3 disciples who are famous in the ninja world, which made Danzo jealous for a long time, but he has never found a suitable target. There are many qualified ninjas in the route, but none of them can reach the level of 3 ninjas. The appearance of the young man in front of him gave him hope. He defeated the Chunin Mizuki before graduating from the ninja school, and his brain is also flexible enough. Such talent is definitely the best choice, and is not much inferior to the original 3 ninjas. As soon as Danzo finished speaking, the golden option interface in front of Yifeng opened. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.